My desk partner and I, the campus beauty, had been secretly in love with each other for 6 years. But just as I'd finally gathered the courage to confess my feelings, she told me something unexpected had happened to her family. She was leaving the city soon. That night, I watched helplessly as she cried through a torrential downpour, devastated and alone. "I'm leaving. You have to take care of yourself from now on, okay?" From that day forward, she vanished completely from my life for 6 years. Until one evening after work, I stopped by the convenience store nearby to grab a few things. That's when a girl in rather bold clothing walked toward me from the opposite direction. And I couldn't help but look twice. I had to admit, she was stunning. But the moment we passed each other, the image of my old desk partner and the girl before me suddenly overlapped perfectly in my mind. I called out her name, uncertain. "Sophia Hayes?" She stopped in her tracks. Her eyes turned toward me. She blinked once, looking me up and down. After confirming she hadn't mistaken me for someone else, her face broke into a radiant smile. Her eyes filled with joy. "Ethan Carter?" I smiled back. "It really is you. You've changed so much. I thought I had the wrong person." When she heard, "changed so much," Sophia's expression faltered. Her smile slowly stiffened. She lowered her head, her voice indescribable. She could only use her small hand to tug at her skirt, which was far too short. "Yeah, you haven't changed much at all, though." I noticed her small gesture, but kept my composure, smiling. "It's been a while." Her eyes stole a glance at me, searching. But she could only hold it for a few seconds before looking away, head down. I was about to say something more, but that fleeting eye contact left me speechless. The girl standing before me bore no resemblance to the one in my memories. The girl I remembered always radiated brightness and energy, like she had stars in her eyes. But now, even the light in her eyes had disappeared. Years apart, sure, there'd be some distance. But not to the point where seeing me again made her instinctively retreat like this. I didn't know what she'd been through all these years. But I knew she shouldn't have become this person. Even if the worst had happened. Even if she'd lost her way. With her natural grace and poise. With her striking beauty. She shouldn't have ended up like this. I snapped out of it. And broke the silence. "Do you live around here? What are you doing out alone this late?" She lowered her head. Her voice trembled slightly. "I live near South Hill High School. Not this neighborhood," she answered like a student being reprimanded. Carefully responding to each question. Glancing up at me between answers. As if trying to read my expression. I had the feeling that if I asked one more thing, she might burst into tears. This was supposed to be a normal conversation. But it felt like I was interrogating some frightened girl. So I softened my tone. Trying to steer things back to normal. "Are you heading home now?" She nodded and hummed in acknowledgement. I asked again, "You're walking?" She nodded once more. It went on like that. I'd ask a question, she'd give a one-word answer. Combined with her cautious expression, it was starting to feel like I was some thug harassing an innocent girl. So I glanced toward the apartment complex beside us. And said, "I live right here. How about I drive you home? It's pretty far from here to South Hill High, anyway." She followed my gaze toward the complex, silently taking note of something. But when she heard I'd drive her home, she looked surprised and flustered. No, that's too much trouble. I can walk back, really." I saw the panic on her face, and felt a little tangled up myself. So I joked, "Why so formal? You're not afraid I have bad intentions, are you?" She tried to protest, but because she was so tense, her words came out jumbled and incoherent. She stammered helplessly. I smiled. "It's just one drive. Not a big deal at all. Wait here, I'll grab my car." I didn't give her a chance to refuse. I turned and jogged off. She watched me go, started to say something, then stopped. I didn't know what was going through her mind. Her eyes had become distant, hollow. Moments later, an old, beat-up car pulled up in front of her. She timidly climbed into the passenger seat. After a moment of silence, she asked, voice full of anxiety, "Letting someone like me sit here? Your girlfriend won't mind, will she?" She asked with quiet worry, her voice growing smaller, as if she herself was too insignificant to even exist. I gripped the steering wheel and answered plainly. I don't have a girlfriend. She lowered her head, silent, as if she hadn't heard me at all. The car was so quiet it felt almost awkward. It was like a massive bridge had formed between us. After we merged onto the main road, I finally started paying attention to the girl beside me. So she could be this quiet, too. If this were the old days, she would have been like a little bird chattering away nonstop, talking endlessly. So I spoke up. I just got back to Riverside this afternoon. She picked up the thread naturally. Oh, really? Were you studying in New York before? Yeah, and I found work there too. I kept the conversation going, stretching out the dialogue. After that, we talked more and more. My demeanor was easy and approachable. When I mentioned familiar places, I'd give Sophia the floor to speak. She didn't even realize that her own words were gradually flowing more freely. The awkwardness of our reunion slowly melted away. As we talked, I quietly observed her. I'd thought that the girl with the sparkling eyes from years ago was gone. But in this casual conversation with her, I still caught glimpses of that light with my sharp instincts. She was sitting right there in the passenger seat. And she hadn't changed at all. The person from back then had never disappeared. She'd just been sealed away, deep inside. You used to copy my homework all the time, remember? I was so worried you'd bomb the exams. But thankfully, you were smart. Your grades were always solid. Sophia spoke, and a faint smile I hadn't seen in ages appeared on her face. Speaking of school, I remember your scores were even higher than mine. So where did you end up going to college? I couldn't get in touch with you after you left. But my question seemed to hit a nerve. Her body tensed slightly. The smile on her face vanished in an instant. I didn't go to college. I was caught off guard. But noticing her emotions, I didn't press further. Because from her tone, I could easily tell that saying those words made her deeply uncomfortable. The atmosphere in the car suddenly became suffocating. I was about to change the subject when Sophia glanced out the window and said softly, "Can you pull over up ahead? I live near there." I checked the traffic ahead, then slowed down and pulled over. After the car came to a full stop, Sophia sat in silence for a moment, then said, "I'll go now." Her words were so quiet they were almost inaudible. Light as a snowflake, she unbuckled her seatbelt and looked at me. It was the first time all evening she dared to look me in the eye. Her pupils flickered with anxious light, and within them were tiny shards of heartbreak. In the end, she couldn't bear to leave. She raised her hand to her chest and gave a small, hesitant wave goodbye. "I'll go now." Watching the girl in the passenger seat slowly stand up, I found I couldn't say goodbye. I could only stare at her, frozen. Was she really saying goodbye to me? Suddenly, I remembered all the little moments with that desk partner from years ago. That classmate with the tattoo. He hasn't changed at all after all these years. Never grew up, not even a little. Everything's written all over his face. What was that look in your eyes? Like you were pleading for help? And that voice of yours, so final and resolved. What was that about? Looking like that, how could I possibly let you go with peace of mind? I came to my senses instantly. And right then, I spoke up to stop her. "I haven't eaten yet. Want to grab food with me?" Sophia placed her hand on the door handle, pushing it open. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. I already ate." Then she stepped one foot out. "Then let me treat you. How about it?" She shook her head. Her emotions seemed on the verge of collapse. She couldn't even speak anymore. "How about Napoleon cake?" Just as she was about to leave the seat, she froze as if someone had cast a spell on her. She went still for a moment, then sniffled. "It's so late. The bakery's probably closed by now." As she spoke, she gently pulled herself back in, then slowly closed the car door with her small hand. "There probably aren't any in this area. But there's one downtown. They're probably doing discounts right now." Sophia pressed her lips together. "Okay, I'll go with you for a bit, then." She turned her face away, occasionally lifting her hand to wipe away tears. I kept my eyes on the road, pretending not to notice. Close to midnight, downtown was still downtown, after all. Far more lively than the school district. We sat by the window in the bakery, where we could still see people passing by outside. This place hadn't changed at all. Everything was just like before. You should eat too. Sophia realized she was the only one eating, and couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. So she pushed a piece of cake toward me. All right, I pulled my gaze back from the window, picked up the small spoon, and ate slowly. Truth be told, I wasn't really into sweets. After 2 bites, I looked up at her. Sophia had her head down, focused on her cake. Her hair was still as beautiful as ever, and she'd grown even more stunning. I hadn't gotten a good look before, but now, in the bright light of the shop, I could see her clearly. Her delicate face had been touched up with subtle makeup. When she opened her mouth to take a bite, I could faintly see a small pink jewel piercing on her tongue. Even on her slender, pale wrist, there was a tattoo. Just a temporary one. I don't know when exactly. But Sophia noticed my gaze. She stopped eating, and used one hand to cover the tattoo on her wrist. Caught staring, I felt a little awkward too. I didn't know where to look. Reflexively, I glanced at her earrings. She looked like she was about to cry. She yanked the earrings off forcefully. They were clip-ons. The rims of her eyes were already red. Seeing that, I flinched slightly, quietly taking a cold breath. Unintentionally, I glanced toward her mouth. She tensed up and opened her lips, raising her hand. But just as her fingers were about to touch her mouth, she realized the gesture wasn't appropriate. She stopped. It's magnetic. I can take it out. I'll get rid of it when I get home. She lowered her head and explained softly. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I panicked for a moment. I hadn't even said anything. Sophia turned away, wiping her tears carelessly. She didn't even care that her light makeup had smudged. She looked like a child who'd just done something wrong. Head down, hands on her lap. You're not eating anymore? The question was completely random. I look terrible right now, don't I? She was anxious, twisting the hem of her skirt, not daring to look up. Yeah, you kind of do. Hearing that, she lowered her head even further. Wasting food isn't a good habit, you know. Sophia froze, then looked up. Her reddened eyes met mine. Hurry up and eat. There's too much here. I can't finish it all. I laughed. Didn't you say you didn't like it? I remember you loved this stuff before. Back in 10th grade, you brought me here. To this exact shop. Sophia hesitated slightly, tucking her hair behind her ear. Then picked up her spoon again. You still remember that? How could I forget? We'd just been assigned to sit together in 10th grade. You said you wanted to celebrate and treat me to something good. You were so mysterious about it. I thought it was going to be some big feast. It was a scorching afternoon, and I stupidly rode bikes with you all the way downtown. Turns out we just bought one Napoleon cake and split it in half. So stingy it was almost funny. Hearing me recount it all with such gentle nostalgia, Sophia smiled. She looked down at the cake on the table and gently cut into it with her spoon. I didn't have any spending money back then. I had to save for so long just to buy that cake. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just thought it tasted good and wanted to share it with you. I'm sorry. She took a spoonful and put it in her mouth. The sweetness melted on her tongue. Then she said softly, I'm really sorry. Sorry for what? Sophia held the spoon in her mouth and looked up, her eyes full of confusion as she looked at me. I said seriously, people are always haunted by the things they couldn't have when they were young. When I saw you looking at that cake and worrying about the money, I told myself that one day, I'd make sure you could eat as much as you wanted. So today, don't waste it. You have to finish it all. You're still just as funny as before. Sophia smiled faintly, looking down and saying softly, I'll listen to you. I'll finish everything. And I really am sorry about back then. That warm, gentle feeling felt so familiar to me. She really hadn't changed at all. But what about me? Sophia's eyes gradually grew melancholy. Each small piece of cake was lifted to her mouth. After a few more bites, her mood seemed noticeably better. Soft, soothing music played in the shop. I chatted with her while listening, casually asking about her life now. She hadn't gone to college. She didn't have a stable job either. The economy had been rough in recent years, so she'd been staying home creating content online. She lived in a cheap rental room. She said all of this lightly, but it radiated discomfort. I could sense she didn't want to talk much about it. So after just a few exchanges, I changed the subject. Instead of talking about life, I shifted to hobbies. When it came to hobbies, Sophia had always loved poetry. Back in middle school, she'd been the literature class representative. Her voice was beautiful. The teacher would often call on her to read aloud. I still remembered how, just to buy a poetry collection, she'd skip breakfast for several days straight. I'd told her she was being ridiculous, teasing her that she'd waste money on something she wouldn't even read. But as if to prove me wrong, every single night, before bed, she'd use voice messages to read me a passage. She'd read with such passion, while I'd get sleepy after just a little while. She was the kind of girl who felt everything deeply. Sometimes she'd get so absorbed she'd cry. I couldn't believe how fast the years had passed. That kid from back then had become an adult, taking advantage of the moment. I joked, "Don't tell me you still have that poetry book?" Sophia tilted her head and smiled at me. Of course I threw it away. After saying that, her eyes unconsciously dropped. She added softly, "Since there's no one left who needs to hear it anymore." She lowered her head, eating the cake as if she were being force-fed. I didn't know if it was because she was hungry or because she was obediently following my orders. But she ended up finishing every last bite. By the time she was done, we hadn't said much more. I could genuinely feel that she was terrified of me, deliberately avoiding something, but at least she wasn't showing clear resistance. "Full yet?" I asked. She held her juice cup, nodded, then asked back, "You said we were eating together. But I was the only one eating. So how much was it? Let me pay you back. I invited you out and then made you pay? That'd be weird." But she blushed, looking at the stack of empty plates beside her. I joked, "What were you thinking back then? How many chances do you get to treat me? Just call me and I'll be there. I'm always ready. Oh, and add me on Instagram." Back in middle school and high school, I only had her messaging app. I didn't even have her phone number. After we graduated high school, I tried reaching out a few times. But she probably stopped using that app, so I couldn't get through. Eventually, we just lost touch completely. The two of us left the bakery. The night breeze blew gently, slightly chilly. Streetlights cast long shadows behind us. We walked side by side, not really talking. The air felt a little awkward. Sophia kept her head down, not daring to look at me. Her heart was a tangled mess. I really hadn't changed at all. But she no longer had the right to like me. Still, getting to see me one more time before leaving this world, she already felt incredibly lucky. Thinking about it, the corners of her mouth lifted into a faint smile. Before leaving this world, getting to walk quietly beside me like this, she was already content. But she was still a little greedy. If only she could hold my hand, how wonderful would that be? Her downcast eyes unconsciously glanced at the hand beside her. She wanted to reach out and take it. But after thinking for a moment, she realized she was being too greedy. Her cheeks flushed slightly. She quickly looked away. But almost at the same moment, without any warning, I suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. Her heart seized. Her body jolted like she'd been shocked. She widened her eyes, turning her head to look at me. I wasn't looking at her. I just pulled her to a stop, frowning as I looked. Across the street, a group of punks on motorcycles roared past us, engines screaming. The deafening sound made everyone jump. Those idiots have a death wish. I watched their taillights disappear quickly, muttering a curse under my breath. Then I turned to Sophia. "Walking without watching where you're going. Always looking down. You almost got hit. They don't care about their lives. Do you not care about yours either?" She snapped back to attention, apologizing repeatedly. I'm sorry. But seeing how panicked she looked, I realized I'd been too harsh. So I softened my tone. "I'm not blaming you. Just pay attention to the road, okay? I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry." Her voice trembled. I knew she was holding back tears. So I just cleared my throat softly and didn't bring it up again. Then I took her hand and crossed to the other side of the street. When we reached the car and I pulled out my keys, I realized I was still holding her hand. Still holding it, just like that. And I'd forgotten. Sophia hadn't pulled away either. I quietly let go of her hand. After getting in the car, without me saying anything, she proactively fastened her seatbelt. sat up straight, and placed her hands on her skirt. She looked exactly like a child who'd just been scolded, and wanted to behave to earn back some points. Seeing this, I couldn't help but laugh internally. I bet when she was little, every time she upset her dad and got scolded, she'd immediately start wiping tables and sweeping floors. Her dad probably felt exactly like I did right now. That particular joy only adults understand. Thinking about it, she really was like a child. I patted my pockets, searching around, but realized my phone was nowhere to be found. I tapped my forehead lightly, suddenly remembering that back at the bakery, after scanning the code to add each other on Instagram, I'd left it on the table. The car still hadn't moved. Sophia glanced at me. Wait in the car for a bit, okay? I left my phone at the bakery. I'll just run back and grab it. I was about to open the door and get out, when she quickly unbuckled her seatbelt, also preparing to follow me out. I turned back to her. Just wait here in the car. I'll be right back. Come back soon, okay? I'm a little scared. Seeing the worry in her eyes, I froze for a moment. A strange sense of familiarity washed over me. It was like being a kid out with adults, standing in the checkout line at the supermarket, or getting ready to board at the bus station. Adults always had to step away for something, leaving you with, "Stay here and wait. We'll be right back." Back then, your heart would fill with anxiety. That fear was unbearably suffocating. And at that age, you had no ability to handle any risks. Being left behind in a situation like that felt no different from being abandoned. That feeling was awful, so I casually tried asking, "It's so dark out, I'm kind of scared to go alone. Want to come with me?" Sophia's face lit up instantly. She nodded repeatedly. "Yeah, I can do that." I shook my head with a slight smile, an indescribable emotion rising in my chest. I didn't know if it was just my imagination, but after all these years, her body had matured, her figure had gotten better, and she'd grown more beautiful. But psychologically, she was still exactly like that middle school and high school girl from back then. After getting out of the car, as we walked toward the bakery, I found myself thinking, maybe because I really did see her as a child. When we crossed the street, I unconsciously took her hand again. I felt her body tremble slightly, but she didn't resist at all. She just let me hold her hand like that. I didn't mean anything by it. At first, I was going to let go, but seeing how compliant she was, I just pretended not to notice. I had to admit, her hand was really soft. Held in my palm, it was slightly cool. Very pleasant. After retrieving my phone and returning to the car, I finally released her small hand. On the drive back, the car was very quiet, but it no longer felt awkward like before. There was even a hint of that youthful blush as a backdrop, and the atmosphere felt much warmer. When we stopped at an intersection for a red light, Sophia suddenly spoke up. "I've always been alone." I glanced at her. She had her head down, fidgeting with the hem of her skirt, hesitating. Then she continued, "I don't have a boyfriend. Never have." I knew what she was implying. I thought for a moment. Just as the car started moving again, I said plainly, "If you like me, we could try dating and see how it goes. We're adults now, no need to beat around the bush." I almost blurted out, "I like you." But when it reached my lips, it came out as, "Is this car yours?" I froze slightly. Actually, there was no need to be that sensitive about it. In a serious relationship, learning about each other's financial situation was perfectly normal. So I answered honestly, "No. It's my dad's car. This Chevy Cruze is something my dad really treasures. Even the door trim is almost completely worn out. Last year, I was planning to buy him a new car." Sophia didn't really know much about cars, but in her mind, all cars were expensive. She wasn't stupid. My driving skills were so practiced, this had to be a personal vehicle. The reason she suddenly grew cautious was because she genuinely wanted to get a rough sense of my living situation. But unlike most people, who hope the other person is well off, I was hoping his situation would be a little worse. In reality, whether his circumstances were good or bad didn't really matter. Almost the moment I asked that question, I regretted it. Because no matter what Ethan's situation was, I could never love him back. And yet, despite that, The gentleness he'd shown me since we reunited still made someone carrying such pain harbor unrealistic illusions. In that moment of heated impulse, I thought maybe there was still a chance for us. So I thought, if Ethan wasn't doing well, maybe I'd still have a shot at keeping up with him. That's why I asked about his finances. But after calming down a little, I quickly faced reality again. Completely disconnected from society, surviving by filming suggestive videos. I no longer had any right to talk about love. I'd already decided I was going to die. Now, after fully regaining my composure, I lowered my head and whispered an apology. I shouldn't have asked. Just pretend I didn't say anything. I slowed the car down a bit. Half joking, half serious. It's not that. You haven't even asked what I do or how much I have saved. And you're already writing me off? Sophia's eyes widened, her reaction somewhat agitated. My voice rose slightly in urgency. No, that's not it. How could I ever look down on you? I smiled. Then why didn't you keep asking? Sophia hesitated, wanting to speak but stopping herself. After a moment, she finally said softly, because there's no need to ask anymore. I'm going to die soon. But the second half of that sentence dissolved into my forced smile. Never spoken aloud. I didn't ask anything more either. I just cracked the window open slightly, letting the cold air pour into the car, helping me sober up a little. I thought love was about to begin. But it turned out to be false hope. The small town wasn't very big. From downtown to the school district was less than 10 minutes by car. The car came to a smooth stop by the curb. I watched the person in the passenger seat prepare to leave, and reminded her, be careful when you get home, okay? As soon as I said it, I realized I really had started treating you like a child. But Sophia didn't seem to notice. She hesitated for a moment before speaking up. Honestly, this feels kind of strange. With a simple goodbye, I drove off into the distance. Sophia stood by the roadside, staring blankly in the direction the car had disappeared. The streetlight was dim, but still she couldn't bear to leave. A plastic bag tumbled past her, carried by the wind, containing nothing but aimless air. Just like me, standing under the light watching him leave. My body holding nothing but a soul no one needed. Both just garbage. When Sophia returned to her rented room, it was already 1 a.m. But she didn't go to sleep right away. Instead, she squeezed into the cramped bathroom. The bathroom in a rental was never properly functional. The water was somewhat cold. But none of that mattered to her at all. While showering, she vented, scrubbing hard at her wrist. Then at her lower abdomen, where she'd stuck temporary tattoos for filming suggestive videos. Her skin turned red from the scrubbing. While drying her hair, her emotions completely collapsed. Tears streamed down without stopping. But she didn't dare cry out loud. She just covered her mouth with the heel of her palm, leaning against the wall. Then slid weakly down to the floor, letting out small, broken sobs. She cried with such heartbreak. All these years, she'd never cried over her difficult life. But in this moment, tears poured out from deep within her heart. Impossible to hold back. Sophia came from a single-parent home. When she was very young, her parents divorced. She lived with her father. Growing up, though their family was poor, life was fairly stable. Her father treated her well. At least she never had to worry about food or clothes. Those days stretched on until the night she graduated from high school. Her father came home, pulled out all the savings cards in the house, and even while speaking, choked back tears, confessing he was drowning in gambling debts. By the time Sophia found out, it was already too late. There really was no other way. Her father said he was going to die. But the debt wasn't so hopeless that it couldn't be repaid. How could Sophia just stand by and watch her father kill himself? Her father said if she helped, they could get through this. Of course she agreed without hesitation. After that, her father used her personal information to take out online loans, borrowing everything he possibly could. Looking back now, it was all just the performance of a gambling addict. An addict will always be an addict. There's no such thing as repentance or starting over. Everything went exactly as expected. Her father didn't use that money to pay off the debt. Instead, he held onto the hope of winning it all back one more time. The result was predictable. The summer after she graduated high school. While everyone else was enjoying their break, she had become an orphan. She had no living relatives left in this world. The last connection between her and her father was the mountain of debt crushing her. After that, life became impossibly difficult. She couldn't go to college. She could only work odd jobs to pay off the debt. When you have someone to lean on, beauty is a ticket to society's favor. But when you're all alone, beauty becomes a death sentence. She ran into countless problems just because of her face. While washing dishes at a restaurant, the owner harassed her. She'd rather die than submit, so she switched to working at an electronics factory. But there, groups of punks with bad intentions constantly lurked. So during those days working away from home, her dorm room always had multiple locks. After 8 at night, she didn't dare go outside. She couldn't attend any gatherings. Everywhere was hell. After wandering from place to place and still unable to survive on menial work, she returned to Riverside. She came back to the familiar old school district and rented the cheapest room she could find. A series of incidents like these made her completely shut herself off, withdrawing from everything belonging to the outside world. All she had left was a phone and a few $100s worth of food. Monthly rent, utilities, and debt collection calls. All of it made every step a struggle. Severe psychological disorders left her without the courage to step outside her door. Life had pushed her to the very edge of the cliff, like a rat cowering in a stinking gutter. But life has no such thing as rock bottom. Once you fall, you just keep falling, until you're shattered to pieces. When she no longer had the ability to interact with people, she naturally fell into the trap of the internet. The so-called internet trap is something designed specifically for people wanting to escape society. People desperate enough to reach the absolute extreme. She fit that description perfectly. She fell into that trap without missing a single step. Drawing, writing web novels, editing videos, live streaming, anything she could learn, she learned it all. Every day, she studied from morning to night. The workload was even heavier than working odd jobs. But despite investing so much time, the money she made wasn't even enough to cover electricity. She took another step closer to the abyss. The final turning point came during one of her live streams. Someone suggested she try creating suggestive content. She was a traditional person, very conservative. Deep down, she was utterly repulsed by the idea. But the debt kept piling up. The rent was overdue, and she was so poor she had to ration every sip of water. She hesitated for a very long time. In the end, she chose to try it once. But in reality, this path was just another dead end. There were always people younger and prettier. The boundaries she didn't dare cross, countless others were willing to trample. But she couldn't do it. Everything she did stayed within what the platform allowed. That was my limit. In her videos, she wore revealing clothes, performed suggestive movements, and included vague, implicit captions. Her beauty was striking enough to attract quite a few viewers. Though growth was slow and the money wasn't much, at least she was starting to earn something. She understood perfectly well what she was doing, for someone as traditional and conservative as her. From that moment on, her heart had died. She decided that once she paid off all her debts, she'd end her own life. In a flash, several years had passed. The intention to die grew clearer with each day. Tonight, after filming her last suggestive video, she recalculated the numbers. Tomorrow, when the money hit her account, she'd pay off the final debt. Finally, she would be free. So she didn't even bother changing out of her revealing outfit. She ran across 2 streets to buy the little pastry she'd been craving for so long. But because it was so late, the shop had already closed. She didn't really care anymore. She figured she was about to die anyway. If people saw her looking like this, so what? But she never expected that on her way home, she'd run into Ethan Carter. All these years, even during the hardest times, she'd often recalled the time they spent in school together. Those memories were the light that helped her survive through those dark years. She'd imagined how wonderful it would be if she could see him one more time before she died. She never expected that fantasy to become reality, leaving her completely unprepared. She'd imagined countless scenarios of reuniting with him, but absolutely not like tonight. Wearing clothes that were a bit too revealing, She didn't know how long she'd been crying. When she was exhausted from crying, she crawled into bed and curled up tightly. Ding! A notification sound rang out. The phone screen beside her pillow lit up. She wiped the corners of her eyes. Her tear-filled eyes glanced at the message. Eating cake with you tonight. I had a really good time. The last time I texted a girl at night was to send work documents to the tech team. I lay in bed feeling somewhat anxious, wondering if she'd already gone to sleep. I really should have waited until morning to send it. Late at night really isn't the time to be making any decisions. Just as I was about to put my phone down, a message came back from the other side. The cake was delicious. Thank you. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. I was about to type a message asking if we could have dinner together next time, when she sent an invitation first. Are you free tomorrow? I froze. A flash of confusion crossed my mind. When we said goodbye in the car, I'd asked about something important. She'd said she didn't want to date. Now she was proactively asking to meet up. What did this mean? While I was still thinking, another message arrived. You treated me to cake today. Tomorrow, I'd like to treat you to a meal. Would that be okay? I immediately understood. I quickly typed a short reply. Sure. Back in her rental room, Sophia clutched her phone to her chest. Her heart raced uncontrollably. Ever since her mental state had become unstable, just meeting people terrified her. Yet this time, she'd proactively invited someone to dinner. That took every ounce of courage she could muster. Every last bit. Most importantly, tomorrow she was going to die. She just wanted to leave a better impression in the heart of the person she loved. Just a little better, that would be enough. At least not like tonight. That was her final wish before death. Early morning in the rental room. Sophia sat by the window, meticulously cross-checking every old debt collection message, verifying each payment, confirming there were no errors. She whispered, finally paid off the last one. A weary smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. She'd barely slept all night, waiting for the money to come into her account. As soon as it did, she immediately paid off the remaining debt. No more debts. She opened her account balance to check. Just over $1,000 left. That's enough. After dinner tonight, I'll leave him with a slightly better impression of me. Then I can die. Honestly speaking, Sophia felt she suffered from severe procrastination. In reality, she should have died right after graduating high school that summer. Yet she dragged it out until now to finally make the decision. Thinking about it, she laughed softly. Her friends who'd already passed away would probably understand that choosing how to die was genuinely a headache. She'd been preparing for a long time. Under the bed was a small charcoal brazier. Then she tidied up the room, packing away all the revealing outfits and those videos into a box. She'd probably never need them again. She knew dying here would wrong the landlord, but she still wanted to minimize the negative impact as much as possible. At the same time, 2 streets away from the rental, in the old residential complex. When I woke up again, it was already past noon, nearly 12. So I'd completely missed breakfast. I opened a food delivery app and ordered some chicken rice. I ate a quick lunch. Since tonight I had dinner plans with Sophia, I casually scrolled through my phone, checking random news. But while scrolling, I reopened last night's text conversation between us. The more I looked at it, the more something felt off. If this were the old days, her proactively asking me to dinner wouldn't be strange at all. But given her state last night, avoidant eyes, timid behavior, she didn't seem like the type to proactively invite anyone out. I felt like something was wrong. Time passed so quickly. Outside the window, the sky had gradually darkened. Truth be told, I'd been feeling restless all along. Images from last night kept appearing in my mind. Sophia's avoidant eyes, and the sight of her standing under the streetlight in my rearview mirror as I drove away. She'd stood there for so long, refusing to leave. The more I thought about it, the more tonight's dinner felt abnormal. Like it was some kind of farewell meal. Unease rose in my chest. I checked my watch and saw it was about time. I grabbed my phone and opened Instagram, typing out a message. Where are we eating tonight? Let me come pick you up. She replied almost immediately. You choose. I'm fine with anything. I tapped on the keyboard, planning to find a small restaurant downtown. Then during the meal, I'd subtly ask some questions. Because I had this feeling she was hiding something deep inside. If I didn't ask, I'd still feel worried. Speaking of what's hidden inside, I also knew she had a secret. I suddenly remembered something and typed out another message. How about we get barbecue? Sound good? Sure. That barbecue place is close by too. I won't drive this time. I'll come to your place in a bit. Then we'll walk to the barbecue place together. After finishing the conversation, I put my phone away, changed my shoes, and headed out. If she was still like she was in high school, there was one surefire way to get her secret out. I remembered it happened in senior year. My 18th birthday. I'd never liked throwing loud birthday parties or inviting a bunch of people to celebrate. My parents knew I didn't like cake, so they just gave me some spending money. No candle blowing or gift receiving required. None of those tedious ceremonies. But still, it was my 18th birthday. After this, I'd officially be an adult. I wanted to do a few things only adults could do. Mark the milestone, so to speak. That night, I asked Sophia to meet up, saying I wanted to do some adult things. That was the first time I'd ever seen her look so tense around me. She stammered, "Ethan, I'm not old enough yet. Doing that wouldn't be right." She'd started school early, exactly 1 year younger than me. But technically, she was already of age. I patiently convinced her, and in the end, I got her to have a little drink with me. She couldn't hold her liquor well and got drunk quickly. Afterward, she completely blacked out. That's when I discovered her secret, truth serum after drinking. Whatever was in her heart, she'd say it all without holding back. She said, "You're such a pain. You don't like receiving birthday gifts. But then you ask me to come out. I didn't even know if I should prepare something or not. Then in your text, you said you wanted to do things that only adults can do, with me. I thought you wanted to sleep with me. I genuinely didn't know if I should come or not. It's not that I didn't want to. I just felt it was too soon, you know? On the way there, I overthought everything. Turns out when I got there, it was just drinking. You jerk, couldn't you just say we were drinking? Saying things that could be so easily misunderstood. I was anxious and stressed the whole way there. Ethan, you know what? I've always really liked you. Always. At the same time, Sophia had been ready since early on. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching her phone and waiting blankly for a message. The screen lit up. A chat window from me appeared. "I'm downstairs at your place now." She immediately shot up reflexively, rushing to the window, pulling back the curtain to look down. She texted back while heading to the door. I stood by the street, mentally calculating the specific plan, thinking girls would need extra time to get ready when going out. But to my surprise, right after I sent the text, she replied immediately, "Coming down right now." I was about to reply, "No rush." But before I could finish typing, footsteps already echoed from the stairwell. I turned to look, and there she was, appearing with a radiant smile. Compared to last night, today she was dressed much more simply. A blouse, light makeup, no accessories on her face or ears. Overall, she looked very clean and neat. It felt like being back in high school. She already had an innocent appearance. And combined with this outfit, she radiated that pure first love energy. She ran up to me, carrying a gentle fragrance. Her chest rose and fell slightly. Her breathing was a bit chaotic. "I made you wait a long time, didn't I?" But the moment she looked at me, she quickly averted her eyes, lowering her head. If it weren't for that avoidant gaze and those small, shy gestures, I really would have thought she'd just stepped out of high school. I looked at the girl before me and said slowly, "I just got here too. Let's go." Then I glanced at her. She was nervously fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. I let out a quiet sigh, trying to hide it. I really didn't know what she'd been through these past years to end up like this. After walking for a bit, she suddenly spoke up. "Today, like this, do I look better than yesterday?" After saying it, she anxiously waited for an answer. Hearing that, I turned to look at her, gave her a once-over, and offered my assessment. "You looked pretty yesterday too. But today's outfit suits you better." Then I added casually, "You look exactly like you did in high school." Hearing my comment, the corners of her mouth curved into a soft smile. She relaxed a little inside. Like high school. Those were the words she'd wanted to hear most. That was enough. I took the opportunity to start chatting with her in scattered bits. But the more we talked, the more I noticed something unusual. Last night, I hadn't paid much attention. But now I felt it clearly. She seemed to struggle with communication. Not in a way that rejected others, but with a very obvious distance and wariness. She seemed to always be in a state of fear, wanting to avoid contact, more accurately, wanting to escape. I got the feeling she was terrified of interacting with people. I wasn't certain, but it felt very strange. I turned to ask her, "Let's go to the old place, yeah?" She nodded. Smiling, she replied, "I'll follow your lead." Back in high school, as desk partners, she'd often tutor me as a way of saying thanks. After evening study hall, I'd often take her to the barbecue place near school for a few skewers. Thinking back on it still felt nostalgic. I said, "How about I treat you today?" She turned to look at me, surprised. "Why?" I smiled. "No reason. I just want to treat you to a meal." She waved her hand. "No way. You already treated me yesterday." It was rare to see her so serious. Then she continued, "This time, I have to treat you." Now it was my turn to be confused. I asked, "Why?" "Because I'm going to die soon." She almost said it out loud. She caught herself in time. And changed it too. "Because after this, there won't be another chance to treat you." "It's nothing. I just want to treat you to a meal." I laughed. "Who taught you to copy the way I talk?" She laughed too. This playful atmosphere really felt like old times. She was still the same girl from back then. Thinking about it, her eyes dimmed slightly. We both sat down at a folding table outside the restaurant. We could hear the sizzling of oil on the grill, and smell the fragrant smoke drifting by occasionally. I suggested, "How about we have a little drink?" After all my calculations, I still chose the direct approach. She hesitated. She'd only drunk alcohol once before. She remembered it very clearly. It was my birthday in senior year. She drank with me to celebrate, got drunk, and blacked out completely. She couldn't remember anything. For days after that, she kept asking me what she'd been like. I didn't say anything too wild, but I always dodged the question vaguely, deliberately making her feel worried. Maybe because she thought she'd embarrassed herself drunk. From then on, she didn't dare touch alcohol. She didn't want me to dislike her. Tonight, all she wanted was to leave a good impression on me. If she ended up making a fool of herself, that wouldn't work. She said, "You can drink. I'll pour for you." It'd be weird if I drank alone. I said, "Have a little with me." She pressed her lips together. "I'm terrible at drinking," I said, half joking, half serious. "Are you afraid I'll take advantage of you when you're drunk?" Then I swear. "No, I didn't mean it like that." Seeing me raise my hand to swear, she panicked and reached out to stop me, wrapping her palm around my fingers. That sudden touch made both of us freeze. Only then did she realize what she'd just done. She immediately pulled back as if shocked, turning her face away. Even her toes curled tightly. "I'll drink with you. Just don't swear so casually. It's not good for you." After a few drinks, we were almost done eating. The beer can in front of her was already empty. Watching the girl before me sway unsteadily, I probed, "Are you drunk?" She slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were wide and glassy, looking at the person across from her. Her gaze was unfocused. Her tongue was a little loose. "Why are there two Ethans? Can you give me one?" "Just one?" She even laughed foolishly afterward. Hearing her talk nonsense. Those drunken words were exactly like I remembered. Whenever she got drunk, she'd shift into a completely different state. Her gestures would become more exaggerated. She'd love talking nonsense. And whatever was in her heart, she'd say it out loud. I laughed. "No can do. That's not something you can split in half." Sophia's little mouth immediately pouted. She complained, "Stingy." I was about to say something, when she suddenly shot up from her seat. Her swaying body knocked over the plastic chair, slamming into the edge of the table. Empty bottles clattered and rolled onto the ground. Seeing her unable to stand steady, I quickly got up to catch her. After steadying herself, she gently pushed me away, then said, "Don't touch me." I hurriedly pulled my hands back, about to apologize. When she continued, "I'm dirty. I'll make you dirty too. Don't touch me anymore." I froze. Dirty? What heartbreak. She turned her head, looking up, trying hard to focus her wandering gaze on me. She nodded with pent-up emotion. She asked softly, "I'm really dirty. I'm sorry." Looking at the girl before me, her gaze unfocused, but still trying hard to look straight at me. I asked with a faint smile, "Why do you say you're dirty?" Sophia shook her head, unwilling to explain further. "Either way, I'm dirty." She tilted her head. "You don't despise me?" I was about to say something, when she suddenly turned away. "Whatever. Whether you despise me or not, it doesn't matter. I have to go home now." Seeing her stumbling along the sidewalk, I quickly grabbed her phone, hurrying to walk beside her, staying close to protect her and keep her from falling. She was completely different from when we arrived, no longer timid. Her speech was loose and natural. She even turned to thank the person walking her home. "You're so kind. Thank you for walking me home." I laughed. "That's what I should do." She continued, "Since you're so nice, I'll tell you a secret. But you can't tell anyone, okay?" Sophia looked around on both sides, then gestured for me to come closer, signaling me to lean in. Then she pursed her lips, her voice small and mysterious. "Last night, I saw the person I like." I froze for a moment, then tried asking, "Ethan Carter?" Sophia's eyes went wide with surprise, as if to say, "How did you know?" I laughed softly, asking back, "Then why don't you date him?" Sophia shook her head. "I want to, but I don't have the right to love him anymore. I'm terrible." As she spoke, her voice started to choke up, like she was about to cry. She really was the type who told the truth when drunk. Everything she said came out vague and unclear. I was thinking about how to ask more, when she suddenly spread her arms out in the air, as if letting go of something, and said, "I want to go crazy." Like humoring a child, I did the same, randomly going crazy on the empty street with no one around. Sophia turned around, puffed out her cheeks, and blew 2 puffs of air at me. "This kind of crazy." I immediately understood. In this whole world, all the wind is yours. No one's going to compete with you for it. Hearing that, she smiled brightly, then turned again, stumbling forward. She muttered as she walked, "I want mountains, I want the ocean. I want freedom. I want love." I walked behind her, teasing, "If you want love, then go find Ethan Carter and love him." At that moment, we just walked under a streetlight. The dim yellow light wasn't enough to illuminate the whole street. Sophia gradually stopped walking, turned around, tilted her head, and smiled innocently at me. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, and said jokingly, "I'm going to die soon." In that instant, the deep night was silent. Only a gentle breeze passed by, softly brushing past her ear. My smile froze on my face. After a brief pause, my eyes slowly widened. I knew very well that when drunk, she didn't know how to lie. Sophia was someone who couldn't hide her feelings. Everything showed plainly on her face. What did she mean by die? I stood there stunned, my mind going blank, while I was still frozen. Sophia finished speaking, swaying as she turned to leave. Then her left foot tripped over her right, displaying the characteristic clumsiness of a child. She fell face first. Thud. She crashed hard onto the ground. I snapped out of it and rushed over. When I got close, I saw her lying there on the ground, laughing foolishly. Seeing me approach, Sophia slurred, asking in a stammer, "Did you just stick your foot out?" I laughed. "I'm not as crazy as you." Confirming she was okay, I lifted her up like picking up a little piglet, pulling her up from the ground. "There's a bench over there. Let's go sit down." With great difficulty, I helped her sit down on the bench by the roadside. It seemed she was exhausted from being drunk and thrashing around so much. As soon as she sat down, her head started nodding as if she was about to fall asleep. Seeing her like that, I stood beside her, both exasperated and amused. "You can't sleep here. You'll catch a cold." Sophia shook her head and looked up. "I'm not sleeping yet. I have to get home before I sleep. It's not safe out here." While she rested for a moment, I pretended to chat casually, then asked, "What did you mean earlier when you said you're going to die?" "Die means die. What else?" I changed my approach. "Are you sick or something?" She pouted. You're the sick one. I'm perfectly healthy. Sophia smiled faintly, her eyes curving as she looked at me. She said, I'll tell you. I'm going to quietly go home and die. I won't let anyone know. Hearing that, my heart clenched. I finally understood what she meant. I asked again, how are you planning to die? Sophia laid out the little plan she'd been preparing for so long. Hiding nothing. As if cherishing a precious secret. When she finished, she didn't forget to remind me to keep it secret. Don't tell anyone, okay? Otherwise I won't be able to die. Then I asked why she wanted to die. But she only shook her head, refusing to say more. Even drunk, she wouldn't open up about it. It seemed this pain was buried very deep inside her. Right now, I couldn't force her to talk about it. At least I knew she had suicidal intentions. For the moment, she was still safe. Only now did I truly understand. This shy, fearful girl had proactively confessed her feelings. Then rejected the person she liked. All because tonight she planned to leave this world. The thought still sent chills down my spine. If I hadn't gone with her tonight, I probably would never have seen this foolish girl again for the rest of my life. She didn't make anyone feel at ease, not even a little. Does it still hurt? I crouched down in front of her, gently pressing on her knee and asking. No response. I looked up and saw Sophia with her head down, eyes tightly shut, breathing evenly. This Sophia, she was really something. Just one can of beer and she was this drunk. She was famous for getting drunk fast. But she also sobered up fast. When she felt her body being jostled slightly, Sophia frowned faintly and hummed softly. Then slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze was still a bit hazy. Her head ached like someone was hammering it, and her memory before was blank. Sure enough, she'd really gotten drunk. She didn't even know where she was. Only feeling that leaning like this was really comfortable. A moment later, she suddenly realized something. Her chest was pressed tightly against someone else's back. She slowly lifted her head, looking at the broad shoulders before her, then fell silent. Then she suddenly straightened up, hurriedly separating herself from that back. The sudden movement nearly made her fall to the ground. I spoke up just in time, hearing my voice, realizing the person carrying her was me. Sophia immediately felt much more at ease. But then she suddenly remembered she'd just been pressed against his back. Her face flushed bright red. She quickly kept some distance, trying to act proper like a young lady. Her voice was soft, full of embarrassment. Can you put me down? I can walk by myself. You were drunk earlier and took a pretty bad fall. It's fine. Hearing her say that, I gently set her down. She looked around and realized we were already near the school. Just a little further and they'd reach her rental room. Having been carried by me for such a long distance, Sophia felt guilty. Without really thinking, she suddenly asked softly, was I heavy? Does your knee still hurt? I didn't get a good look earlier. Hearing me ask, she quickly changed the subject. She tested her knee. Nothing seemed wrong. But thinking back to how she'd gotten drunk and fallen, she couldn't help but feel her face burn. How embarrassing. And embarrassing herself right in front of him. She'd only wanted to leave a good impression before dying. But alcohol really was the worst. He probably thinks I'm terrible now. Seeing she didn't respond, I thought she was in pain. So I asked, do you need to go to the hospital? Sophia quickly shook her head vigorously. No, no need. It doesn't hurt at all. I'm fine. We walked the rest of the way in silence. Downstairs at her rental building, we stood facing each other. Be careful on your way home tonight. A hint of reluctance flickered in her eyes. But I just silently looked at her. Sophia couldn't bear that gaze, and had no choice but to lower her head and look away. I suddenly asked, can I see you again tomorrow? Sophia froze for a moment, then looked up, glancing at me, before quickly lowering her head again, hiding her emotions. I have something to do tomorrow. Then what about the day after? I still wouldn't let it go. Sophia's heart trembled slightly. I'm busy that day too. She lowered her head even further, her hands hanging limply at her sides, powerless. I continued, then what about the day after that? Next week, or the week after? What about next month? I spoke faster and faster, constantly touching the fragile thread in her heart. Suddenly, Her small hands at her sides clenched into fists. Then she looked up quickly, staring intently at me. Did I say something to you when I was drunk? I didn't intend to hide it. So I said plainly, you said you wanted to die. Tonight. Sophia looked straight into my eyes. This time, she didn't avoid them at all. But when our gazes met, the corners of her eyes immediately grew wet. A glistening tear rolled down her chin and fell. She said softly, choked up, that was just drunken talk. I looked at the crying girl before me. You think I'll believe that? Sophia sniffled. Whether you believe me or not doesn't matter. I have to go home now. She turned to leave, but I grabbed her hand. In that instant, it was like I'd flipped a switch inside her. She jerked away violently, shaking my hand off. Then snapped, I told you it was just drunken talk. Don't worry about it. The way she tried to act fierce looked no different from a little red panda trying to scare someone. Not scary at all, but at least she knew how to get angry, that was good. I smiled faintly, lowering my gaze, speaking slowly. I can't control you. I don't have the right to control you either. After a few seconds of silence, I tilted my head toward the street, as if recalling something. Don't laugh at me for saying this. But, Sophia choked up, tears still falling without answering. So I just kept talking. Actually, all these years, I've thought about you a lot. When I eat, I think about you. Wondering if you're silly enough to treat dessert as a main course. When I'm studying, I think about you. Wondering if you're studying too. When I'm working, I think about you. Wondering if your boss likes endless meetings like mine does. I've basically turned you into my emotional comfort. Whenever studying got stressful, or exams wore me out, or when work frustrated me or left me confused. When I was exhausted in body and mind, I'd think of you. I'd wonder what you were doing right then. You were my hope. Hearing this, Sophia lowered her head and cut me off. But I didn't even make it to college. I couldn't even find a job. I don't have teachers, I don't have a boss. I definitely don't have money for sweets. I'm like a rat, hiding in a damp rental room. That reeks of mildew whenever it rains. I barely ever see sunlight. I'm not anyone's emotional comfort. I'm not your hope either. Her voice grew smaller and smaller. Her emotions were completely uncontainable now. Large tears competed to fall. These words, she'd never wanted to say them to Ethan Carter. She'd even been afraid of him finding out. She'd only wanted to keep a good impression in his heart, then quietly die. But now, saying it all in front of him, was no different from tearing open a scabbed wound with her own hands. Exposing the raw, bloody flesh still bleeding underneath. Taking all the poverty and ugliness in her life, and laying it bare before him. Forget a good impression. Even the beautiful image he had of her in his memories would probably collapse completely. Everything shattered, nothing left. She frantically wiped her tears. Her emotions grew even more chaotic. Her actions started losing control. Her choked sobs couldn't be held back anymore. She turned to run away. But I'd already grabbed her again. She cried out, pleading, let me go, please. Please. I don't want you to see me like this. Just let me go home. My heart clenched sharply. I took out her phone and handed it back to her. Right here, downstairs. I'm going to call you. You have to answer. If you don't, I'll come up and find you. Sophia took the phone, crying and nodding repeatedly. Only then did I let go, watching her run up the stairs. Not long after, a light on the third floor flickered on. Sophia stepped inside, leaning her back against the door. Then she couldn't hold it in anymore. She burst into sobs. Thankfully the rental room had decent soundproofing. Or else on a night like this, she'd have disturbed the whole building. Her tears poured out violently. In just a few minutes, she'd cried so hard she could barely breathe. Her vision gradually darkened. Just then, her phone rang. She hiccuped and looked at the screen to see who was calling. Then she walked to the window, gently pulling the curtain open a crack. She saw me standing by the curb, phone pressed to my ear. Pacing back and forth, looking deeply worried. She hesitated for a moment, then answered. She tried to suppress the hiccups in her throat, softly saying, hello? Just like that, separated by 3 floors. The two of them talked on the phone. One person stood down on the street. The other hid behind the curtain. I asked gently, feeling any better? Sophia wiped her tears. Her voice was hoarse and small. Don't worry, I'm fine. I laughed softly. You always say you're fine. Then I fell silent for a moment. Sophia peeked down through the small gap in the curtain, observing the figure below. It was really cold outside. She said softly, her voice tinged with concern, "Go home." "I'm okay." "No." I immediately refused. My tone firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Sophia felt guilty. "It's freezing out there. Please go home. I won't do anything stupid anymore," I said over the phone, my tone half laughing, half reproachful. "You change your mind that fast? I don't believe it. You, changing your mind? That'd be strange. When have I ever broken my word? Did you forget? Back in middle school." I deliberately steered the conversation, my voice natural, then just kept bringing up middle school stories. The two of us had been desk partners throughout middle school and high school. And we were people neither of us could forget. So there was an endless supply of things to talk about. One sentence from me, one from you. It was just like being desk partners again. When we could talk endlessly every day. Intermittently, we stretched it out for hours. Eventually, I managed to make Sophia happy. She'd even burst out laughing now and then. My legs got tired from standing, so I sat down. She sat on the edge of her bed. I sat on the curb. From up high, she looked down at the boy sitting below. After crying and then laughing, her voice softened, melting into the wind. "Go home. It's so cold down there. What if you catch a cold?" Hearing that warmed my heart. "It's okay. I'm dressed warmly." Just then, the streetlight suddenly went out. Looking up, the sky was cold and indifferent. Without realizing it, dawn was approaching. I pulled my gaze back. The dim light made it hard to see clearly. Her silhouette sitting by the window gradually faded too. She squinted, standing up and pressing close to the glass, wanting to see just a little more clearly. In that moment, she forgot she was even talking. "Are you still listening to me?" My voice rang out from the phone. "Yeah, I'm still listening," she answered softly. "Good that you're listening." I let out a breath of relief. "Why are you sighing?" I held the phone, laughing. "I was a little scared. It's almost morning. What's there to be scared of? I'm not afraid of the dark. I was just scared you wouldn't answer me anymore." Hearing that, Sophia froze. Then understood what I meant. She said softly, her voice gentle, "I'm sorry. I made you worry." Sophia, I called her name with an intimacy I'd never used before. This was the first time I'd called her like that. Hearing it, Sophia's ears burned hot. She wasn't used to it, felt a little awkward. But inside, she felt an unusual warmth. She even liked it a little. "What is it?" she asked softly, blushing, tacitly accepting the way I'd addressed her. Outside the rental building, I stood up, brushing the dust off my pants. Sitting there all night, saying I wasn't tired would be a lie. I took a deep breath, looking up at the distant horizon. As dawn was just breaking, my mind was filled with images of Sophia from the past. My ears could still hear the soft breathing. On the other end of the line, waiting for her response. My heart was unusually calm. In that stillness, was all the rationality I'd used to restrain the fervor of youth. By now, this feeling didn't need consoling anymore. I said gently, "I like you. Will you be my girlfriend?" The weight of those words didn't lie in volume, but in content. That one sentence was heavy enough to make her forget how to respond. She could only stand there in a daze. When she came to her senses, Sophia reflexively stepped backward, unconsciously retreating, until her legs touched the edge of the bed and she stopped. Her heart beat wildly out of rhythm. Her mind was in such chaos she couldn't think. Did she want to date him? Yes. Even in her dreams, she wanted to. But could she actually date him? Thinking about the days she'd spent filming borderline videos to pay off debts, barely scraping by, she no longer had the right to love him. The more he said he liked her, the more her heart twisted. Sophia's tears streamed down. Her throat felt like it was being crushed by a boulder. Over the phone, she trembled, saying the opposite of what her heart felt. "I'm sorry. I'm someone with a lot of problems." She spoke so slowly, but inside, she was bleeding. Before she could finish, I cut her off. "It's okay. If you don't accept, that's okay too. Love has to be willing on both sides." But there are a few things I absolutely have to tell you. She sniffled. Okay, go ahead, I'm listening. I looked up at that tightly curtained room. I said, I don't know what you've been through these past years. But the future is still so long. Don't bury yourself in the past anymore. Actually, I'm a very selfish person. I don't know how painful it is for you to keep living. But I want you to keep living. Sophia Hayes, you are my hope. At this point, I paused for a moment, breathing out softly, trying to hold the phone even closer. Word by word, transmitted clearly to her side. Later, for a long time after, whenever she thought about this day, whenever she remembered those words, she'd unconsciously start to smile, smiling until her eyes turned red. In her heart, I was always there. Romance was never meant to be unchanging. His confession was like a sunset. She remembered what I'd said back then. Come on, my hope, stay hopeful. Hiding your feelings is a terrible thing. But by this point, she'd embraced the determination to let go of everything. She'd decided, I want to hide my past and start over with him. Try stepping outside, getting to know the world again. So she hung up. Downstairs, I stared at the disconnected phone, stunned. Anxiety began rising in my chest. Had I just said something wrong that hurt her? I looked toward the stairwell, then up at the window. My mind went to the charcoal burning in the room. How long would it take to have an effect? Without much hesitation, I was about to head upstairs. Just then, the curtain was pulled back. The window flew open too. Hearing the sound, I looked up. At that moment, the sky brightened. She stood by the window, smiling down at me. The pale sunlight, thin as a cicada's wing, wrapped her in a layer of gentle light. She tilted her head and said apologetically, Sorry for making you wait so long. I snapped back to myself, quickly answering, It's okay, I just got here too. Want to grab breakfast? But it just became morning. She immediately agreed. Wait just a minute, okay? After saying that, she closed the window and disappeared from the frame. I let out a breath of relief. That smile of hers just now was truly devastating. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. I couldn't help but marvel. She really came out fast. I just barely calmed down when I saw her running down from the stairwell, taking small steps toward me. Her breathing was quick and uneven. What do you want to eat? My treat, she said, looking at me. Her eyes couldn't bear to look away. I was a bit caught off guard, looking her up and down, wondering if I'd somehow mistaken her for someone else. How strange, just yesterday, she was still that girl who'd immediately look away the moment our eyes met. After just one night, how had she changed so fast? We hadn't even seen each other, we just talked on the phone all night. How did she turn into a different person? Those eyes were so warm. Of course, I had no idea about her determination to let go of everything. Even less did I know what it meant. That she'd completely opened her heart to me. But seeing me stay silent for so long, she grew a little worried. Is it too cold? You don't want to eat? No, I'm just thinking about what to eat. I pulled my gaze back. Scanning along the street, I spotted a place up ahead selling soy milk and fried dough. How about we go over there and grab something? Okay, whatever you say. Sophia walked obediently beside me. I looked at her strangely, feeling like something was off. Maybe staying up all night had made me start hallucinating. I didn't think much more of it. Inside the breakfast shop, Sophia said she was treating, so I didn't refuse. I ordered some crispy fried dough, paired with pickled ginger and soy milk. Sophia acted like a sweet little wife, proactively asking, Do you want anything else? I tried to get used to this suddenly enthusiastic girl. I wasn't as shocked anymore. I just kept saying no, I was fine. After we'd eaten our fill, Sophia very proactively went to pay. The two of us left the breakfast shop. I said I'd walk her home since we'd been up all night, suggesting she should catch up on some sleep. She obediently agreed. We walked back the same way we'd come. I lowered my head, deep in thought. Earlier, when she was paying, I'd realized that Sophia hadn't actually changed. She was still someone who avoided eye contact with everyone, always keeping a distant, wary space. That almost unbelievably intense warmth was hard to describe accurately. It was as if she'd completely separated herself from the world, placing all her warmth on me alone. The unusual distance was reserved for the entire world. After a few years apart, she'd gone from cheerful and lively to timid and withdrawn. After one night apart, she'd gone from avoidant eyes to eyes full of passion. I couldn't understand it, I really couldn't. Just as the CPU in my brain was starting to overheat, Sophia, who'd been walking silently beside me, suddenly spoke. I agree to be your girlfriend. I, Ethan Carter, stopped and turned to look at her. Sophia stopped too. Her face flushed bright red as she lowered her head to look at the weeds growing in the cracks of the sidewalk. Her small hands clenched tightly with tension. I squinted at her. Just moments ago, my CPU had been heating up. Now it was completely overloaded. It felt like I'd skipped a chapter. If I remembered correctly, last night she just rejected my confession. I tilted my head, studying her expression. Since she couldn't hide anything, everything in her heart was written on her face. One look was enough to know she was sincere. But understanding didn't mean I could explain it. I knew she sincerely agreed. But I couldn't understand why she'd rejected me last night, only to accept this morning. Or maybe, rejecting the confession was her impulsive decision, while accepting it was after careful thought. Not thinking it through felt too complicated. I temporarily set aside my doubts and turned to keep walking. Sophia froze for a moment, then hurried to catch up. Not getting a response, she blushed and repeated softly, I agree. To be your girlfriend. You confessed to me last night. This morning doesn't count anymore? Sophia panicked immediately, apologizing repeatedly. I'm sorry, I was wrong last night. I tried to hold back my laughter, keeping a straight face. Feelings have to be mutual. Force won't lead anywhere. She was on the verge of tears. What should I do now? It had been so hard to finally decide to hide the past and spend my whole life beside him. But now he was saying he didn't like me anymore? Her voice was thick with sobs. She felt like she was about to be rejected. Tears were ready to spill. She started talking in a jumbled mess, trying to hold on. Please be my boyfriend, okay? I can't live without you. I'm begging you. I'm not exaggerating at all. Before I could even react, her tears were already pouring like rain. Not only that, she completely ignored the stares of people around us. Her knees buckled, and as she said, I'm begging you, she was about to drop to the ground. Thankfully I reacted in time and pulled her back, stopping her. If someone had taken a photo of a girl crying and kneeling on the street because of some guy, I couldn't imagine how the rumors would spread. I pulled her up. What are you doing? Why do you keep trying to kneel? She didn't even wipe her tears away. They kept streaming as she stared straight at me. I'm out of options. Don't you have any other way to keep me? She pressed her lips together like she was about to burst into tears. I felt both heartbroken and amused. Why do you think kneeling will make me definitely agree? Seeing she'd been misunderstood, Sophia shook her head frantically like a rattledrum. Her tears grew larger, like beads on a string. They were about to break off completely. I didn't dare tease her anymore. Pretending to be serious, I said, if you stop crying, I'll agree. She froze, then immediately started wiping her tears frantically. I'm not crying. I'm not crying anymore. I handed her a tissue. She took it, wiping while asking, do you agree to be my boyfriend? That anxious look, needing confirmation over and over. I couldn't help but laugh. Didn't I already agree? Sophia sniffled, not knowing what to say. Her brain short-circuited a bit. She just stammered thanks, which was almost funny. She didn't know what I was laughing about. She was just infected by my smile, and unconsciously started laughing too. Crying and laughing at the same time, she was almost losing it. We just stood there laughing together for a long while. Sophia stopped first. I gradually stopped laughing too. I used my hand to wipe the corners of her eyes, then tilted my head to look at the girl beside me. Word by word, I said clearly, love isn't something you beg for. We're choosing each other willingly, liking each other mutually. Sophia's heart, which had only ever opened for me, was powerfully struck in that moment. She felt dazed, not even knowing how she'd gotten home. By the time she came to her senses, she was already lying in bed. Her face was bright red as she hugged her blanket, not sleepy at all. In her head, she kept replaying what I'd said, choosing each other willingly. liking each other mutually, breaking all the rules. Those words of love were truly too rule-breaking. Before, when watching TV shows or reading novels, Sophia always thought the love talk between couples was both embarrassing and cheesy. But now she'd completely changed her mind. Love talk was something very private, meant only for two people in love. Outsiders couldn't understand it. Right now, in Sophia's head, there was nothing but Ethan Carter's voice. She felt like she was broken. She couldn't stop thinking about me. Since graduating high school, she'd never once fallen asleep with a smile on her face like this. For her, dreams were very monotonous. In them, there was only endless darkness. Dark shadows within that darkness tormented her relentlessly. She was terrified of sleeping, so much so that she'd suffered from insomnia. Yet now, she slept so peacefully. Have you ever seen anything divine? I've seen two gods. That day, my God brought light and stepped into her world. The moment the light appeared, the darkness was trampled beneath her feet. I reached her, faster than death itself. After staying up all night, trying to fully recover with twice the amount of catch-up sleep was far too ambitious. I had deep experience with that. I slept straight through until afternoon. Nearly 10 hours. When I woke up, my head was spinning. Everything felt uncomfortable. After ordering food, I scrolled through my phone. Probably because I'd slept so deeply. I'd missed 2 calls from my mom. I hurriedly called Chen Huilan back. Thankfully, Mom was in a good mood. She just casually asked a few questions over the phone. Why hadn't I answered? I made up some random excuse to get by. If she found out I'd slept all day, she'd definitely nag me to death. I knew it came from a place of love. But nagging that could be avoided should be avoided. Getting nagged was just annoying, but making Mom upset was a bigger problem. We chatted for a few minutes on the phone. Mostly the usual reminders. Mom said she'd be home tomorrow afternoon, telling me to cook my own meals and not order takeout, and to water the plants for her. I looked at the takeout box on the table, confidently assuring her, "Don't worry, Mom and Dad. I'm not ordering takeout." After saying goodbye to Chen Huilan, I casually tapped on Sophia's profile picture on Instagram. I didn't see any messages from her. I figured she probably wasn't awake yet. She'd always been fragile and emotional. Last night I hadn't noticed. But I was different, based on her red, swollen eyes this morning. She must have cried hard last night. Sleeping in a bit more was normal. I didn't even understand what she was crying about. What a silly girl. I thought about her for a while, then ate my takeout while scrolling through my phone, looking for some fresh mental junk food, watching one thing after another, scrolling and watching, one after another, over and over like that. But before I found any good content, I'd already finished all my food. Shocking. My junk food was actually the process of looking for junk food. I laughed at myself, cleaned up the takeout boxes, and went back to my bedroom, pulling out my laptop to connect and get ready to work. Procrastination syndrome, anything design related, had to wait until the last minute to start. Tomorrow I had to report to the company branch, and only now was I pulling out my laptop to prepare the necessary documents. I never proactively started work. Time was always chasing me from behind. Going to work? If I could start late, the later the better. If I could make money while lying down, the less I had to start, the better. That was my work attitude. Most working people were like that. But I was different in one way. Once I entered work mode, I could guarantee maximum efficiency. Absolutely no slacking. That was just my personality. Since joining the company, I'd always been loved by colleagues and superiors. I already had good looks to begin with. Young and tall, bright and handsome. I knew how to talk and handle people well. Had solid professional skills. And was ambitious. Even between two colleagues who didn't like each other, I could get along great with both and fit in like a fish in water. That was my strength. Plus, I wasn't overly competitive. I could talk easily with anyone. My colleague relationships were excellent. And my superiors cared about me. My career advanced smoothly. This time, the company transferring me to a local branch for training was also treating me as future talent worth cultivating. I was still too young. Only 24, freshly graduated not long ago. They couldn't directly give me an important position at headquarters. Leadership decided to temporarily assign me to the local branch, to take on some work. In short, to train first. Since it was a local branch, my salary would be calculated according to local standards. Compared to headquarters in the big city, the gap was quite large. In other words, my salary on paper would decrease significantly. But headquarters would supplement the difference with various subsidies. In reality, the money I'd receive was actually slightly more than before. After confirming my transfer, leadership worried I'd react negatively, and specially sent someone to explain the situation. Actually, whether they explained or not didn't matter. I had no objections. Work was work, no matter where. Going to a smaller place might even be more comfortable. As for salary, I genuinely didn't care that much. I didn't come from poverty. My family didn't put much pressure on me either. As long as I could support myself, that was enough. After learning the branch I'd be transferred to was my hometown, Riverside, I immediately bought a ticket home. Working in my hometown, absolutely perfect. Who wanted to leave home for a big city prison anyway? Call it a big city if you want to sound fancy. But in reality it was just a prison shaped like an office building. People who knew how to enjoy life enjoyed it anywhere. But people who had to struggle for survival, they were just changing prison cells. Yet people who knew how to enjoy life were rare. Look around. Everywhere you saw people running around for their livelihood. If you had to be in prison anyway, at least you should be imprisoned where you were born. That way it felt a bit more comfortable. I focused intensely, typing away, organizing all the documents I'd need for tomorrow. I worked straight through until evening. After finishing, I stretched and drank some water. Opening my phone to check messages. There was an unread message notification on Instagram. A familiar profile picture. In her rental room, Sophia was lying in bed. She didn't understand why she'd slept so soundly, missing both lunch and dinner completely. One sleep lasting until it was time to sleep again. Her head was foggy and dizzy. Awake, but not really awake. She couldn't tell what was a dream and what was real. The first thing she thought of after waking up was to quickly open her phone, go into Instagram, and check if there was a new profile picture in her contacts. She tapped on the profile picture. Only when she saw those few short text messages and the surprisingly long call duration did she breathe a sigh of relief. She'd really been scared it was all just a dream. That there had been no reunion at all. Just a dying hallucination. After committing suicide with charcoal. Thankfully, that fear was unnecessary. It wasn't a dream. She really was with Ethan Carter now. Thinking back, it still felt unreal. She sat dazed on the bed for a while, nervous and anxious, then sent me a message on Instagram. "What are you doing?" The message went out like a stone thrown into the sea. No response for a long time. She really wanted to send a few more messages to ask, but was afraid of bothering me. She could only hold her phone and wait silently. People were most prone to overthinking when waiting. She started wondering if I was busy with something, or if I'd caught a cold last night and gotten sick. At first, her thoughts were still reasonable. But the more she thought, the more absurd they became. The more she thought, the more anxious she got. Just as she started imagining whether bad guys had broken in to rob, or even kidnap me, the Instagram notification sound rang out right on time, interrupting the girl's wild thoughts. I would never know. That message had inadvertently saved me from a kidnapping in her imagination. I was busy working just now. Sorry. Didn't notice your message. Sophia didn't even care how long she'd been waiting. She smiled and typed back. "I'm just glad you're okay." I read it and had no idea what she meant. We weren't even on the same wavelength. Then we messaged back and forth for a while longer. When I learned Sophia had slept straight through until now, and hadn't eaten anything all day, I scolded her a few times. I didn't understand why, but even though she was being scolded, Sophia felt really good inside. It had been so long since anyone cared about her like this. Since graduating high school, when her father ended his life because of gambling debts, this was the first time someone had scolded her out of concern. So being cared for was this happy. I didn't realize that I seemed to have inadvertently awakened some strange ability. Late at night, the moon had gone to bed. And the stars were getting sleepy too. Two people, 2 streets apart, said goodnight to each other, taking joy into their dreams. The flower of love seemed to be blooming. But one potted plant in the room was about to wither. Men really do promise to water plants for 2 days. And end up not watering them at all. That unlucky plant. If it had a soul, it was probably thinking how happy those 2 people were. Fine, I don't have any talent anyway. Let me just die to make them even happier. Chapter 13. Monday Interview. The sky was crystal blue. Without a single cloud. Today was the first day of school for students. And the day working people ended their weekend and returned to work. I drove Dad's cruise to the new company to report for duty. Passing through the school district. Compared to a few days ago, the difference was like night and day. Looking in through the school gates, I saw groups of students in blue and white uniforms, brimming with youthful energy, driving down the main road. I could hear the loudspeaker from the sports field, a teacher's voice full of enthusiasm, probably holding the opening ceremony. The area around the school was much livelier too. In front of the storefronts, banners advertised back-to-school promotions. Still the same school, still the same bustling scene. It stirred something in me. That had been my youth, now past. Wait, I was only 24. I was in the prime of my youth. Why did I feel nostalgic like an old man? Going to work really did age people fast. My body was in its 20s. But my soul was already like someone in their 70s or 80s. If only I didn't have to work, how wonderful that would be. On this particularly brutal Monday. As a working person, I couldn't avoid feeling a bit sluggish. I sat in the car muttering complaints. Following the map's directions, I arrived at the company entrance. I found a parking spot. Then adjusted myself mentally before getting out. Complaining was one thing. But if I didn't work, what would I live on? Wasn't that just how life was? You complained. Then went right back to work as usual. I was the type who had both ability and luck. My social connections were excellent. In my sophomore year of college, a talented senior introduced me to opportunities. Thanks to that, I got to intern at a major gaming company. From then on, everything went smoothly. This time, being transferred to the local branch for training. Actually, this branch wasn't ordinary at all. They called it a branch. But in reality it was a studio under the parent company. Responsible for developing a long-term romance game. Operating independently. In the end, it was all driven by the times. This project division, since its establishment, had always been in a mediocre state. But thanks to the parent company's backing, it hadn't been swallowed by the era's fierce waves. Plus, with technical support and long-term operational guidance, other independent game studios were the ones eliminated first. As they say, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. Their game quality was nothing to criticize. They just didn't have enough money for promotion. Combined with the fact that pure romance games had a small player base. They'd just been quietly operating in the shadows. Actually, when the original project lead chose the target player demographic, I'd thought about this issue. Pure romance games didn't have enough players. But in return, those players were incredibly loyal. It was a pretty safe choice. No incredibly bright future ahead. But they wouldn't starve either. Reality proved exactly that. So many games chasing open-world trends and gacha character-raising models had died in droves. But this division remained standing. At first, I thought it would just operate until server shutdown. But unexpectedly, something big happened recently. Against the backdrop of increasingly intense gender conflicts, the gaming community was chaotic as a battlefield. All kinds of absurdity. Making long-term games was extremely difficult. The community grew more toxic by the day. Drama everywhere. Anything could happen. Gender discrimination complaints. Characters dressed too revealingly. Characters too covered up. Storylines too childish. Storylines too vague and confusing. Before one drama could cool down, another would explode. Yet in that chaotic situation, someone mentioned this game's dev team, saying, "Argue all you want. 'Cause chaos all you want. But don't destroy this last pure romance sanctuary." Just that one statement caught the attention of so many people. Originally, this game was only somewhat known in romance game circles. Suddenly it was amplified to the extreme. Brought into the spotlight for the entire public to see. Traffic surged dizzyingly. Plus, the game content was very clean. The more people dug into it, the more solid it proved. They'd never chased trends, always staying true to pure romance. The dev team never played dead, almost 24/7 responding to player feedback. Their service attitude was player-centered. They focused all their energy on operations. The game quality itself was excellent too. Suddenly, a huge wave of players flooded in. Most were following the trend. Even if they'd never played this genre before, they were curious to try sweet romance. This wave was like a massive free promotional campaign, making both the game and dev team famous overnight. Only recently had the heat started dying down. Even so, revenue during that period had exceeded initial projections by more than 10 times. Not only that, they'd solidified their reputation and retained quite a few players. From being jokingly called the last romance sanctuary at first, to now, just a few months later. Such a short period, yet it helped an independent dev team that had been so ordinary become the parent company's focus in no time. To say they had no real strength would be a lie. The parent company transferring me here this time for training. Besides accumulating experience, they also wanted me to learn more. I walked out from the parking lot, heading toward the company, while mentally reviewing relevant information. Today my main task was to register with HR. Get familiar with my position. Nothing urgent. Pretty relaxed. The company wasn't very large. From the outside, it was just an ordinary 3-story building. Just then, I saw a young guy in glasses wearing business attire, stepping out the main entrance, walking hurriedly. Thanks to that, I confirmed which was the entrance. I walked up and entered the lobby. Right away, I saw the reception desk straight ahead. The floor was laid with ivory white tiles. The reception desk was white. The lobby's decor looked exactly like those phone service stores. Simple overall, but very clean. The work environment seemed decent. I walked up to the reception desk, looking around. Hello? Anyone here? It was clearly Monday morning. Yet the reception lobby was empty. This absolutely couldn't happen at headquarters. But at a local studio. Partly due to limited budget and staff. And partly because in a small town, hardly anyone came to the game company to work or contact them directly. So having no receptionist wasn't strange. You just had to call out. I'd researched all this beforehand. Just as I finished speaking, a middle-aged man, somewhat short in stature, but with excellent presence, quickly stepped out from the side. He was dressed neatly, his steps decisive. He was clearly the one manning reception. The enemy had arrived. Sorry about that, made you wait. His smile was very infectious. I smiled back with similar friendliness. I just got here too. I was about to introduce myself briefly and explain why I was here. The other party was very perceptive, proactively asking, "You're from the programming tech department, right?" I paused slightly. The company had transferred me here, but hadn't specified my exact position yet. I'd have to wait for HR to arrange it. Still, at headquarters, I'd belong to the programming tech department. There was no way I'd switch to another division. Seeing his friendly demeanor, I figured headquarters had already notified them. Everything was arranged properly. I just had to follow protocol. I smiled back. The receptionist pointed me in the right direction. It was just a few steps, so he didn't lead me over. Right over there. That's the HR office. I nodded in thanks and walked over. Around the reception desk, off to the side was a small waiting area. There was only one office facing the main entrance. Out of habit, I adjusted my collar, then knocked gently on the door. "Come in." A clear female voice rang out from inside. I pushed the door open and stepped in. The office wasn't large, simply furnished. One glance was enough to take in the long desk. On the other side was a water cooler. A girl around my age was sitting there reading files. She was clearly from our. When I entered, Sophie Chen looked up from the pile of documents. She glanced at me, then looked back down, as if suddenly realizing something. She looked up again. Her eyes quickly swept from top to bottom, and her expression softened a bit. She gestured lightly for me to sit in the chair across from her. Humans were visual creatures, after all. First impressions always mattered. I'd never had to worry about my image. I had to thank my parents for giving me pretty good starting specs. Since childhood, I might not have been strikingly handsome, but as long as I dressed neatly, I still looked pleasant and clean. Plus, with years of regular exercise, my build was proportional, so at a glance, I still left people with a good impression. I walked over and sat down. Sophie Chen stopped reading documents. She looked at me and said, "You look really young." "I just graduated this year." "Just graduated? Oh. Beijing University, combined bachelor's-master's program, right?" Sophie Chen looked surprised and puzzled, flipping through documents. When she'd had free time, she'd glanced through applicant files. But she didn't remember anyone this young, with such high academic credentials. She flipped through several pages. The files were a mess. She couldn't make sense of them. She decisively set them aside and stopped looking. She cleared her throat lightly, then asked, "You want to join the programming department?" I nodded. "Yeah, I was in the programming department before too. But if the company has other arrangements, I'm willing to follow them." Looking at the person across from her, Sophie Chen felt somewhat confused. This was definitely a match. This morning, there was an interview for a new programmer for the tech department. But she couldn't understand. Someone both young and good-looking, with high education and work experience right after graduation. With qualifications like that, why would he settle for working at such a small company? Sophie Chen asked curiously, "Have you researched our company?" Suddenly being asked, I was a bit surprised, but found it interesting, like taking a college exam. Though I didn't understand why HR was asking these interview-style questions. I was still happy to present all the information I'd carefully prepared. Since last night, I was more than willing. Starting from the company project's formation process, then talking about establishing the initial operating philosophy, and recent shifts in public opinion. My reasoning was clear. My presentation articulate, even key revenue figures. I could list them in detail. Sophie Chen listened in stunned silence. At first, she just suspected I might have walked into the wrong company, and casually asked. She never expected I'd be able to state specific revenue figures, and even analyze some related data. Of course, whether it was accurate was another matter for now. Either way, headquarters had told her to pay extra attention to me, so she had to fulfill her responsibility. As I was thinking that, Zhao Qian hurried to the interview room door. The moment her hand touched the doorknob, she faintly heard people talking inside. A man and a woman. My heart sank. Don't tell me today was that unlucky. Just going to the bathroom for a moment, and the programmer they'd worked so hard to negotiate with had run off? And the person headquarters specifically designated for special attention. Was he about to be overlooked too? Chapter 14. The Scheming. You also understand software architecture? Not really that much. I just studied for a while with the architecture team lead before. That's already pretty impressive. Sophie Chen found the person across from her more and more appealing. This kind of appeal leaned more toward admiration than romantic interest. I didn't really understand why someone so talented would come here to apply for a programming position. But I didn't need to understand. With abilities like that, Sister Qian would definitely hire him. Sooner or later, we'd be colleagues anyway. Knowing a bit in advance was good. Besides, someone this capable. His financial situation probably wasn't bad either, right? Sophie Chen's eyes darted around, pretending to ask casually, "Are you a local from Riverside?" I answered, "Yeah, that's right. I'm from Riverside. Is your home far from here?" "Not too bad, not too far." "How long does it take to drive here?" "About 10 minutes or so. This morning there was a bit of traffic." "That still takes quite a while. Is it because you live far away?" Sophie Chen pretended to show concern. "Right by the school district. School opening day, lots of cars." "Oh, I see." Sophie Chen hid her triumphant smile. Homes near the school district were expensive. He really did have money. Chen Yuan, I don't have money. My home is in the old neighborhood area. Not one of those expensive places. Oh, really? Sophie Chen started scheming, probing my finances without any opening. Overall, his economic situation was probably middle-upper class in Riverside. He seemed optimistic, tall and handsome. Right now, during her free time. Dating him first wouldn't hurt. Have a little romance, then keep looking for the next one. Didn't seem bad, that's what she calculated. The office door was pushed open. Hearing the sound, both of us turned to look. A neat, tidy uniform. Half-rim glasses. A well-proportioned, attractive figure. A beautiful face with a cold demeanor. The quintessential image of a professional woman. Sister Qian, you're back? Sophie Chen stood up and hurried over. I clearly sensed the aura from that woman. Not like an ordinary person. Her rank was definitely high. I stood up too. Sophie Chen said, Sister Qian. I interviewed someone for you. I'm telling you. You'll definitely be satisfied with this one. Hearing this, I said in surprise. Interview? Sophie Chen heard me, turned to look at me, and broke into a bright smile. Don't worry, you'll definitely get hired. I was even more confused. Get hired for what? Didn't I come here to hear the job assignment from HR? Seeing the scene before her, Zhao Qian wasn't in the best mood. She didn't pay attention to Sophie Chen approaching, and instead turned to look at me, giving me a quick assessment. She confirmed I was indeed the person sent by headquarters. Finally, her suspended heart settled. She didn't know if Sophie Chen had already probed my financial situation. Ethan Carter, right? Zhao Qian looked at me and asked. I maintained a composed attitude, showing no awkwardness. Yes, that's me. Zhao Qian, follow me. I'll go over your work arrangements with you. Now it was Sophie Chen's turn to be confused. Earlier, she'd been busy probing my finances. She hadn't even asked my name yet. But that wasn't really important. Why did the manager know so clearly? And she was personally arranging work for me? She followed along, puzzled. Zhao Qian turned back. Sophie Chen, go back to your station. The interviewee from earlier left. This morning's interview ends here. Her instructions were very brief. Okay, Sophie Chen stood in place, watching the two leave. Sister Qian said the interviewee had already left. In other words, that guy named Ethan Carter wasn't here for an interview. Leaving the office, I followed a step behind Zhao Qian. She said, my name is Zhao Qian. I'm the HR manager here. You just arrived. If you have any issues, just talk to me. I replied, yes, okay. Sister Qian and I went up the stairs to the second floor together. This place wasn't like headquarters, there was no elevator. I'd have to get used to it eventually. I smiled lightly. At headquarters, my desk was on the second floor. I often took the stairs. Whenever we passed somewhere, Zhao Qian would give a brief introduction. She was leading me around to familiarize myself with the environment. I'd respond appropriately too, not letting her words fall into silence and create an awkward atmosphere, but also not talking too much, so people wouldn't think I was chatty or overstepping. The second floor was the main work area. Spacious and bright. The lighting was excellent. Looking at the layout, it was roughly divided into departments: planning, programming, art, and a few other management teams. The desks were also the common paired type. Two people sitting facing each other. Nothing special. After walking around, we went up to the third floor. Here, there were several rows of file shelves standing in line, and a few private offices. I followed Zhao Qian into one room. She gently closed the door and sat down. She sat in the chair before the computer, gesturing for me to sit in the chair across from her. She said, I'll go over your work position arrangements. I walked over and sat down. Zhao Qian entered information, while relaying instructions from headquarters. My position was assigned as team leader of programming team 2. The workload wouldn't be too heavy. Normally, I'd need to study more from the lead programmer and the system manager. She also explained about salary. Base salary was 5,500, but headquarters had various additional subsidies. My allowances, when added together, would make my total monthly income slightly higher than before. After explaining all the details, Zhao Qian finished entering the information. She looked at me. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. In a bit, I'll take you to your workstation. I said, I basically understand everything. These arrangements are similar to what I was told beforehand. Nothing's different. After everything was arranged, Zhao Qian looked at me, hesitating slightly. Then asked, what do you think of that girl Sophie Chen from earlier? I recalled and answered, she's a pretty lively girl. Zhao Qian lowered her eyes slightly. She's a member of programming team 2. You shouldn't interact with her too much. Mentioning Sophie Chen's name, she paused briefly, thought for a moment, then carefully chose her words to continue. She might affect your work. I nodded. Okay, I understand. Zhao Qian looked at the smiling young man across from her. He looked very neat and tidy, his whole being radiating brightness. But looking closely, she couldn't guess anything. She didn't know if he actually understood what she meant. Zhao Qian thought for a moment, worried I was too naive to get her meaning. So she said more directly, she might try to get close to you. In short, don't get too close to her. It won't be good for your development. I kept smiling and answered, okay. I understand. Zhao Qian looked at me for a moment longer, then let out a quiet sigh. She didn't know if I truly understood or not. But what she needed to warn me about, she'd warned. Her responsibility was now fulfilled. Then I'll take you to get familiar with your desk. As for the specific work, tomorrow you'll follow the lead programmer and the system manager. Yes, okay. We returned to the second floor. Arriving at programming team 2's work area, Zhao Qian introduced me, briefly to the team members I'd be leading in the future. Among them was Sophie Chen. She lowered her head awkwardly, never expecting the person she'd interviewed this morning was actually the person who, these past few days, had been the most talked about among members, the new team leader. She'd interviewed her direct supervisor. It was truly laughable. She was so embarrassed her toes wanted to curl up. After the introductions, Zhao Qian arranged my seat and left, taking Sophie Chen along with her. The programming office didn't have much to talk about anyway. Everyone during work hours kept their heads down focused. Since I just arrived, I hadn't been assigned any tasks yet. I just opened my computer and made a roster of team members. And it was already lunchtime. Zhao Qian brought Sophie Chen back, then personally took me down to the cafeteria for lunch, getting me familiar with the dining area in the process. Zhao Qian was the HR manager, so her taking me around to familiarize myself meant no one came over to chat or approach me. The cafeteria food was pretty decent, nutritionally well balanced. After lunch, I walked around a bit, then returned to my seat. I created a work group on Instagram, inviting all team members to join. Then, based on the information everyone provided, I completed the roster. While I was idle with nothing to do, Zhao Qian came looking for me again. She thought about how I'd just been transferred to Riverside. Here, there were still many things in daily life I needed to prepare for. So she let me leave early. After all, today was Monday, a normal workday. But I got off at 4:30 in the afternoon. Leaving the company, I felt like it wasn't real. All day I'd done nothing. Just wandered around the company, ate one meal, and work was over. My first impression of the new company immediately improved dramatically. Plus, the new colleagues were pretty interesting. Especially that girl named Sophie Chen. Quite lively. Just that from morning until now, she kept circling around asking about finances. Pretty funny, actually. Her intentions were crystal clear. Her approach like a kindergartner's. From my perspective, evaluating Sophie Chen felt like an adult picking on a kid. Those little tricks she thought were so clever. I could see right through them with just a glance. Still very immature, with a kind of innocent beauty. Both pure and silly. Childish, but endearing. I stretched lazily, walking toward the parking lot, while taking out my phone to call my mom, Huilan. My parents had been home since noon, not seeing me at home. They called to check. Right then, I'd been on lunch break too. Taking the call, I briefly explained my current situation. Details could wait until I got home. Though my mom was a bit surprised. She didn't ask anything more. Just reminded me to call home before leaving work, so they could conveniently cook dinner. I'd learned my lesson. Didn't dare pull any surprise stunts anymore. Being smart, I called home to report as soon as work ended. Once again confirming my status as mom's good boy. The phone connected. I said, "Mom, I'm off work now." "Good. Buy soy sauce." "Okay." I ended the brief call. Just happened to reach my car. The supreme leader at home, my mom Huilan, had issued orders, telling me to remember to buy a bottle of soy sauce on the way home. There was a convenience store at the residential complex entrance. I could just stop by on the way. Sitting in the car, I didn't start the engine right away. I opened Instagram and tapped on Sophia's profile picture. Half a day had passed, and I hadn't seen any messages from her. Didn't know what she was up to. What kind of girlfriend was this? I just called her directly. The moment I pressed call, she picked up immediately. "What am I doing?" I pretended to be stern, preparing to interrogate her. On the other end came Sophia's soft voice, shy but still full of enthusiasm. "I'm missing you," I said. "What's with this, huh?" Sophia Hayes? Chapter 15. Youth is often lamented as foolish. A waste of time. But what kind of living isn't a waste? Youth itself is too beautiful. However you live, it feels like a waste. As long as your heart is willing, even letting youth pass by can't really be called waste. Sophia didn't think today she was wasting her life. She'd woken up very early. Having made the decision, she'd try to live again, hide the past, and start over with me from the beginning. And that started with small things in daily life. She cleaned her room. Several boxes of revealing clothes already packed up. Props moved into a corner and stacked, so they wouldn't take up much space. Magnetic pins thrown in the sink. Small beads tossed in the trash. She opened windows to let air circulate. Swept and mopped the floor. The small charcoal brazier hidden under the bed, along with trash collected while cleaning, were gathered together. She went out to take out the garbage. On the way back, passing by the convenience store. Since planning to end her life, she'd stopped buying daily necessities, like toothpaste and shampoo, even those props and magical daily items or whatever. She'd almost used them all up. If she wanted to keep living, she'd need to buy more. But didn't dare buy much. She checked prices carefully, calculated the balance in her wallet, saving enough for rent and basic food expenses. Her way of living had to maximize savings. Cook a bowl of noodles at home, add a bit of salt, and that was a meal. As long as she was alive, every second, every minute was spending money. Rent, utilities, food, supplies. She had nothing. No relatives, no support. Her ability to handle risks was basically zero. If she got sick and couldn't push through it, there was only death. Before getting a new income source, everything had to be calculated carefully. Save as much as possible. Speaking of making money, Sophia had never been afraid of hardship or exhaustion. She was very willing to work. But things that had happened before made her completely shut herself off. Ever since curling up in this rental room, she'd almost completely cut herself off from the outside world. She was afraid to talk, afraid to interact with others, even afraid to step outside this room. Not exaggerating. Her psychological problems couldn't just be summed up as serious. She completely couldn't integrate with others. I was the exception. From the moment she decided to try to keep living, Sophia had completely opened her heart to me. You could put it this way. I was her entire world. This had nothing to do with blind love. It was because of me that she chose to keep living. I was her lifeline. A lifeline in the literal sense. Before, she could imprison herself, like a frozen dead rat, rotting in a cold, damp sewer, until death. But now, no matter how hard life was for her, no matter how difficult stepping outside, she couldn't give up. Because I was waiting for her. She had a reason not to give up. Actually, today she'd planned to focus on daily life matters. Sophia knew that very clearly. But she couldn't concentrate on thinking about anything besides me. Put simply, she missed me too much. She always felt our romantic relationship wasn't real. And she didn't even dare be certain whether we were actually a couple. Her heart felt uneasy, vague and illusory, close yet distant. She just sat there hugging her phone, spacing out on the bed, looking at our chat window. She really wanted to send a message, but was afraid of bothering me. I wasn't like her. I still had work to do, still had social relationships to handle. But she only had me. Sophia was afraid suddenly calling would bother me. If I found it annoying, or grew to dislike her, she truly wouldn't know what to do. The only thing she could do was wait and pray. Pray I'd be free. Pray I'd think of her. Pray I'd mercifully care about her a little. After 4 in the afternoon, the Instagram avatar she'd been staring at all afternoon suddenly lit up. A voice call invitation came and she answered immediately. On the other end came the voice she'd been longing for. Hello. What are you doing? Her mood instantly shifted from gloom to joy. Sophia said shyly, I'm missing you. That statement embarrassed her, but she didn't want to hide anything from me anymore. The past was already something she felt guilty about. Absolute honesty was a way to make up for it. After she answered, there was a light cough on the other end. Have you eaten anything? Sophia answered, not yet. Last night, she'd been scolded for barely eating all day. She quickly added that she'd already eaten this morning. On the other end, in the car at the parking lot. I thought about that statement for a moment. It sounded strange, like a child, deliberately showing off to adults after behaving well. That flavor of waiting to be praised. I wasn't too sure, but tried praising her. Very good. But the other end didn't respond. I couldn't see her expression either, so couldn't guess anything more. I felt a bit awkward, like I'd just done something foolish. Who would like being treated like a child? I quickly switched to something serious, also to avoid the awkwardness. Why didn't you message me all morning? Sophia said she was afraid of bothering me at work. I shook my head, switching the phone to my other hand, reaching for the seatbelt with the free one. She wasn't wrong to guess that. Right now, Sophia was still in that state of wanting to hide from everyone, truly thinking of others, while constantly wronging herself. I asked back, you're my girlfriend, right? Sophia froze slightly, then hurriedly answered, yes. Just listening over the phone. I could tell how quickly she responded. I said, a girlfriend missing her boyfriend, and sending a few messages. How is that bothering him? I paused, then teased. Or maybe you don't actually miss me at all. You're just pretending to make me happy? Hearing I'd misunderstood, Sophia panicked. No, I really miss you. I always want to message you too. But I'm afraid of bothering you. I'm not lying. She grew more flustered the more she spoke. I quickly cut her off. Then from now on, if you miss me, just message me. Don't be afraid of bothering me. Understand? I clicked my tongue silently. This reaction, this way of expressing emotions so directly, looks like I can't casually tease her anymore. Sophia on the other end seemed to have calmed down. Okay. Then we talked a bit more. She reminded me to remember to eat dinner. Said I had to drive here, so hung up. I'd originally planned to invite her home for dinner, but thinking it over, it wasn't appropriate, so I let it go. One reason was I hadn't told my parents beforehand. Suddenly bringing a girlfriend home like this was inconvenient. With my parents' personalities, they'd definitely fuss and make extra dishes to be proper. Then both sides would be tense. Another reason was thinking about Sophia's current state. Bringing her to meet my parents would be no different from torture. I really didn't understand what she'd been through these past years to develop such severe autism. I thought about these things while starting the car. Getting off work early today, I'd avoided rush hour. The road home was clear and unobstructed. I conveniently detoured to fill up the gas tank before heading to the residential area. Found an empty spot to park. Eager to get home, I smiled brightly and ran quickly toward the apartment building. I hadn't seen my parents in so long, I really missed them. It had been a while since I'd had Mom's cooking too. Taking 3 steps in 2. Climbing 3 stairs at once. Mom, I'm home. Before I'd even pulled out my key. Before I'd fully entered, I was already calling out loudly by old habit. The whole room smelled of food. Truly the scent of happiness. The sound of cooking in the kitchen rang out. A sound that put people's hearts at ease. My mom Huilan's voice called out from the kitchen. Right on time. Bring the soy sauce to me. I'd almost forgotten. Chapter 16. Stir-fried beef with bell peppers and coconut jelly. Braised pork knuckle, stuffed eggplant, stir-fried lotus root with meat. Tofu ball soup with dill. A table full of dishes. Truly abundant. I ate deliciously. All my favorites. Conversation at the table was quite light. Mainly asking after health. Then saying I'd gotten thinner lately and needed to eat more. After eating, I took care of washing dishes and wiping the table. Dad swept the floor. Mom rested. Household chores had always been clearly divided. They say even thunder waits until after a meal. But once you've eaten, accounts must be settled. My mom timed it perfectly to when I finished washing the last dish. When you're done, come out here. Huilan sat on the sofa, calling toward the kitchen. Her voice wasn't loud, but the supreme leader's aura immediately blazed forth. My dad, Chen Miaohao, sat down beside Mom, holding a fruit knife and actively working. I quickly wiped my hands on a towel and hurried over. Why are you still standing there? Sit down. My mom pushed up her reading glasses, then gestured with her eyes to the side. I didn't dare sit too close, keeping an appropriate distance. Those 2 potted plants both died. You didn't water them even once. She looked at me and said. I said slowly, I just forgot. My eyes swept every corner of the house. Just didn't dare look directly at my mom in that imposing state. My mom shook her head. I told you to bring soy sauce home and you forgot that too. So you went back down to buy it. I muttered something under my breath. Huilan looked at me, saying nothing more. Gradually, in the living room, only the crisp sound of the knife peeling apples remained. I sat in a daze, not even daring to let my eyes wander. Actually, about watering the plants, my mom didn't really plan to blame me. It was just my carelessness. Going out traveling and forgetting to arrange for someone to care for them. She'd thought the plants would definitely die, a bit of a pity. She never expected I'd suddenly come home and water them in time. She thought they'd survive. Who knew the plants still couldn't escape their withering fate? The lady of the house had reminded me twice. Yet I hadn't listened either time. A pity, yes, but not to the point of heavy blame. After all, in terms of household hierarchy, her son still ranked slightly above 2 potted plants. But that bad habit of not listening, of giving perfunctory answers, she still had to take this opportunity to remind him. After a moment of silence, my mom spoke again. Talk to you. Lately you're less and less willing to listen to me. Like that thing about not eating out so much. You said you wouldn't. But the trash is full of takeout containers. I lowered my head, not daring to say a word. Details determine success or failure. Slack off a little and get scolded immediately. After being lectured for a while, Dad figured it was probably enough. He spoke up to smooth things over. Mom's just worried about you. Don't act impatient, like you don't want to hear anything. Then he turned to his wife. Have some fruit. While speaking, he speared several apple pieces on toothpicks and pushed the plate toward my mom. My mom picked up an apple piece and ate it. Then told me, eating fruit is good for your health. I also speared an apple piece and put it in my mouth. My dad didn't like apples, so he washed his hands and peeled a banana. The training session ended. The atmosphere at home immediately lightened. Actually, normally my mom was very easy to talk to. Just a bit strict when scolding. I sat back against the sofa eating apple. My dad clutched the TV remote, eyes glued to his sports channel. My mom tilted her head, asking about the work transfer. What was this about Riverside? I sat up to explain. Yes, it's like this. Like that. Exactly. Like that. My mom normally didn't interfere much with my work. She let me develop freely. My parents had always only wished for one thing. That I be safe. I explained for a while. She only understood the gist. From now on I'd be working in Riverside. Coming home is good. Mom didn't ask more. Oh right, the bedding in your old room is worn out. Tomorrow Mom will buy you 2 new sets. We chatted casually. Time passed in this comfortable atmosphere. Outside, the sky gradually darkened. I sat on the sofa, scrolling my phone. Chatting with Sophia. My mom turned to ask my dad. What color is the Chinese team wearing on TV? My dad answered, white jerseys. My mom pushed up her glasses. Then how is it 0 to 7? My dad laughed lightly. Not reaching double digits is already impressive. My mom nodded thoughtfully. Actually, she didn't really understand much. She just sat with her husband watching TV every day. I looked at the scoreboard without understanding the match at all. Laughed softly, then commented. Wasting a whole second not messaging my girlfriend. A moment later I said, Mom, I'm going out for a bit. I stood up and went to the door to change shoes. My mom checked her watch. Remember to stay safe out there. Don't come back too late. Put on an extra layer. It's been really cold out lately. Her son was grown, so she didn't say much. Yes, Mom. I arranged my shoes neatly on the rack. Grabbed an extra jacket and headed out. It was just before 9 p.m. I'd arranged with Sophia to go out for a walk, wanting to create more intimacy. And also to observe more. To see just how severe her autism actually was. I left the residential area. Since it was just a walk, I didn't take the car. On the way, wind blew strongly, making my jacket flutter. It really was quite cold. I zipped up my jacket. Passing by Riverside No. 2 Middle School. Street food carts lined up in a long row. During the break after evening study hall, quite a few students ran out to buy food. Pretty lively. Before reaching the rental area, I saw Sophia standing by the roadside from afar. Seeing me, she immediately looked delighted. I looked at her as if interrogating. Then found a place to park my bike and lock it. I quickly walked over. Why are you waiting outside on the street like this? Didn't I say I'd message or call when I got here? Sophia smiled brightly at me, watching me get closer and closer. Standing right in front of her. She really liked this feeling. I missed you. I wanted to see you a bit sooner. She was so honest it was disarming. I laughed lightly, teasing her. How come I never noticed before? You seem a bit silly? Being told that, Sophia felt a bit shy and lowered her eyes. Actually, I've always been silly. I said, being silly is good. I like girls who are a bit silly. Caught off guard, Sophia trembled slightly, her face flushing red as she looked up at me. I'd already turned away. Let's go. Let's walk along the school. Sophia followed, walking beside me for a bit. I turned into a small roadside stand. 2 coconut waters. Add extra coconut jelly. Sophia said, I'm not thirsty. You don't need to buy me one. I gestured to the owner to keep going. Then turned to her. You'd let me drink alone? Back in high school, we came here every week. You'd always tell the owner to add extra coconut jelly. The owner still remembers you. I smiled, glancing up at the shop's sign. Still the same old sign. But the owner was already someone different. Sophia lowered her eyes, the corners of her mouth carrying a faint smile. You still remember all of it? She lowered her head, seemingly flustered about something. 2 coconut waters are ready. The owner handed the bag to them. I took it. You pay. Sophia took out her phone to scan the code. She just raised her hand, when I'd already stuffed a drink into it. While she was saying thanks, I'd already scanned and paid. Sophia was a bit stunned. Leaving the stand, they continued strolling along the school's edge. I occasionally tilted my head, looking to the side. Students in blue and white uniforms rushed past. From them, I seemed to see my own shadow from before. When I'd step out of the internet cafe, sprinting back to school to make it for evening study hall. If I couldn't make it, Sophia would use her position as academic vice monitor to lie to the teacher taking attendance, saying I'd gone to the bathroom. I'd always understood her heart. But back then, I thought she did it out of loyalty. Now, thinking back, that was Sophia, a well-behaved student who always followed rules. Yet for me, she dared to lie to teachers. Heaven knows how tense she must have been when lying. I drifted in the stream of memories. Sophia walked beside me, head down, both hands clutching the coconut water, not daring to drink. Not everyone can comfortably spend someone else's money. Sophia already felt she owed me, always feeling guilty inside, even just a coconut water. The feeling of spending my money made her genuinely uncomfortable. She'd rather be the one paying. That way she'd feel better, less guilty. But she didn't have money. Already extremely frugal, she only had enough rent for 2 months left. Not a cent to spare. In the next 2 months, she had to struggle through and find a way to earn more income. Both time and money were tight. She couldn't afford to treat me back. I emerged from my thoughts, noticing something off about her. I asked, "Something wrong? Lately, can you not drink cold things?" Sophia looked up at me, processing for a moment before quickly saying, "No, that's not it." I asked, "Then why haven't you drunk it yet?" Sophia hesitated. "How about I transfer you the money? I'll save it from food expenses." I frowned. "No need." "Sophia Hayes, what are you doing?" The last few words of my sentence. She didn't fully understand, but looking at me, I seemed angry. She panicked, hurriedly apologizing. "I'm sorry. Please don't be mad." I raised my eyebrows slightly, looking at her sternly. "So you can tell I'm angry? Then tell me, what am I angry about?" I looked at the flustered girl before me, then shook my head lightly. "You." I reached out and took the coconut water that had warmed from her tight grip. With a sound, I poked the straw in, then handed it back to her. I said, "Don't be so formal. We're going to be together forever. Later, when you have money, you can treat me all you want." At this point, I paused slightly, looking up at the streetlight. "If you still want to buy then." Sophia looked at my profile, not understanding why her heart felt so warm. The corners of her eyes grew a bit hot too. She nodded. "Later, I'll treat you. I'll always want to." I said nothing more, turning back to look at her. "Drink it." I even told the owner to add extra coconut jelly. Their eyes met, not knowing why. They both burst out laughing for no reason. I laughed freely, while she laughed softly, shyly. In my eyes was the image of her lowering her head slightly, taking a sip of coconut water. Coconut jelly flowed through the straw into her mouth. She chewed lightly, sweetness spreading. Chapter 17. Strolling the street, strolling the heart. Taking advantage of the atmosphere around the school, we talked about high school days. When it grew late, I walked her back to her rental area, then scanned a code to rent an e-bike to go home. The day passed both happily and quickly. The pace of life was gentle. Compared to headquarters, it felt 100 times more comfortable. Of course, mainly because today was only my first day at the new company. There wasn't much work yet. But either way, here I could eat Mom's cooking and chat with Dad about things we agreed on. Truly, nowhere beats home. I thought this all the way home. When I got home, my parents had already gone to bed early. I walked quietly, washed my face, and went to my room to sleep. Before sleeping, I got an Instagram message from Sophia, asking if I'd gotten home safely. We exchanged a few messages, then wished each other good night. Closing my eyes, unbidden images appeared in my mind. Scenes from walking with her tonight. I had to admit, Sophia was really very easy to read. She'd never spoken directly about her financial situation, but every time the conversation neared that topic, she'd cleverly steer it elsewhere. Her intentions were too obvious to hide. Plus, she'd vaguely mentioned she didn't currently have stable work, doing some freelance online work. Trying to gloss over it quickly, I'd seen with my own eyes where she lived, a small, cheap rental room. Poor lighting, cramped, especially when with me. Every time it involved buying things or paying. Her shy, awkward actions truly made it obvious at a glance. Severe autism and struggling financially like this. These past years, she must have gone through so much. And most of it probably wasn't good. I didn't dare think deeper. Just suddenly felt like I wanted to hold her close. Though actually, if I really held her, she'd probably be very soft. Beep beep beep. The alarm startled my heart. The person in my arms turned into a pillow. Damn alarm witch. Why don't you lift your spell already? I reached out to turn off the phone alarm. My heart still lingered. Last night's sleep wasn't deep. Sitting up, hair messy. I posted, "I'm up," in my friend group for fun for 2 minutes. Then went to wash my face and get ready for work. "Why are you up so late?" "Mom left you 2 steamed buns and an egg in the steamer. Eat, then go to work. Don't be late." At the entrance, Mom was changing shoes. Seeing me come out of my room, she said it habitually, no different from when I was still in school. Except, the words, "go to school," in that sentence had become, "Go to work." "Yes, Mom. Be careful on your way." I hadn't even finished speaking when Mom had already changed shoes and gone out. That speed truly lived up to her title as the highest authority in the house. Cool, but I still felt a quiet admiration inside. Eating breakfast with a steamed bun in hand, I couldn't help but remember the old days. Back in school, I truly lived in blessing without knowing it. Every morning someone cooked breakfast. Yet I'd still complain about why it was eggs and buns again. Always wanting to convert breakfast into spending money, so I could buy fried skewers from street vendors. Honestly, compared to fried skewers outside, hot steamed buns fresh from the steamer were still more fragrant. After eating, I adjusted my clothes and left. Dad had taken the car. After all, it was Dad's car. I had to switch to another way to get to work. The bus stop was a bit far, and I didn't want to squeeze onto buses anyway. Leaving the complex, I scanned a code to rent a public e-bike. Riding it to the company. Going a bit slowly. Early morning leisurely catching the breeze felt pretty nice. Luckily the company was in an area where e-bikes could go straight through. Didn't get stuck in traffic near the school. Got to the company in about 10 minutes. Not much different from driving. Just as I stopped and locked the bike, a female voice rang out. "Ethan Carter, team leader Chen." A girl full of energy. I turned to look. A girl in a black dress, carrying a small bag. Sophie Chen walking over. I smiled. "Good morning." Sophie Chen smiled back. She glanced around and asked, "Team leader didn't drive?" I glanced at the shared e-bike. "Obviously." Sophie Chen laughed. "Team leader's so funny. Didn't you say yesterday you drove? Today you didn't drive because of school traffic?" Her voice was lively. Her gestures cute. At first glance, she seemed like an innocent, cheerful girl. Very likable. But every move was the result of careful calculation. I could tell at a glance. Truly innocent people weren't like this. Thinking that, unbidden, Sophia's image appeared in my mind. That was truly innocent and pure. I said, "I don't have a car. That car belongs to someone else." Knowing she was trying to probe, I proactively misdirected her, so she'd give up sooner. Sophie Chen made a surprised, "Oh," sound, as if real. Then switched topics. We chatted while entering the company. Going upstairs, we ran into HR manager Zhao Qian. "Good morning, Sister Qian." Passing each other. Zhao Qian looked at the two of us, chatting and laughing together, with a complicated expression. Even though she'd already warned him, her worst fears had come true anyway. Ethan Carter was like a seedling raised in a greenhouse, without much scheming, not knowing how to hide anything. His private affairs had probably been completely extracted by Sophie Chen already. Young, with money, and a future. How could Sophie Chen pass up such a target? Warnings were useless. Sister Zhao sighed with worry, feeling she'd failed headquarters. Someone specifically sent to be carefully looked after was now about to become a plaything in Sophie Chen's hands, and she could only stand by watching, unable to do anything. She truly felt ashamed toward headquarters. Up on the second-floor work area, there were already a few scattered people. The work atmosphere was quite positive. Back at my seat, I opened my computer. "You're Ethan Carter, right?" Hearing someone call, I turned around. A man wearing glasses, slightly balding, looking to be in his 30s. "Yes, that's me. Hello, I'm the project manager, in charge of the technical side. Follow me to the office for a bit. I'll brief you on the work." He spoke clearly and articulately. I politely responded, and followed him. Sophie Chen was gossiping with a colleague then. She immediately noticed something unusual, her eyes following me and that person. The colleague looked in the direction she was staring. "Sophie, is that the new team leader for your programming group? He's really handsome. And young. Heard he just graduated. Are you interested in him? Good looks and a future. Real potential there. But this morning I reassessed. His financial situation isn't great. Not interested anymore." Sophie Chen just shook her head dismissively, then asked back, "What's the salary for a programming team leader anyway? Does it need the company's lead programmer to personally arrange it?" A colleague laughed. "You're in the tech department. Why are you asking me?" Sophie Chen withdrew her gaze, looking like she was thinking about something. Then turned to me with that silly girl smile. Classic fake innocence. In the office, the lead programmer began assigning me work. After talking and arranging things for a while, his serious expression also softened considerably. He even seemed somewhat incredulous. Initially, when headquarters sent someone down, saying he was key talent needing cultivation and requiring special attention, he'd actually been quite resistant. Looking through the file, just a 20-something youth fresh out of school. At first glance, he'd immediately concluded, this was some high-level leader's privileged kid from headquarters. Just sent here to gain some experience. Figured he was a greenhouse plant. Couldn't expect real ability. But after talking, everything was completely different from expectations. I communicated very smoothly, grasping all work content, even asking if certain steps needed optimizing. He'd even deliberately played tricks when assigning this week's work, especially increasing the workload quite a bit. The goal was to make things difficult for me, so I'd proactively ask for a reduction. Then he'd reluctantly agree, reducing the workload to normal levels. A common little workplace tactic to establish authority lightly. Who knew? I'd just calmly answer, no problem. Looking at my expression, clearly not forcing it, but truly no problem at all. Had some real ability. But how much ability? Still had to see future work results. But it was enough to preliminarily conclude I wasn't some privileged kid here to play around, but truly someone headquarters wanted to train. Seeing me stay quiet, I asked, any other arrangements? He seemed to snap out of it, clearing his throat lightly. Going forward, your work will be assigned by me. If anything's unclear, just ask directly. Next month when the system planning head returns from a business trip, he'll continue arranging things. I answered, yes, no problem. If there's nothing else, go back to work. Leaving the office, I returned to my seat. Now I'd been assigned work. Time to get busy. I didn't know if headquarters had instructed them beforehand or not, but the lead programmer was clearly favoring me. The volume and difficulty of work he assigned, how to put it, compared to headquarters, it was like kindergarten introductory lessons. Easy as eating candy, not exaggerating at all. Chapter 18. When working, work. I didn't start loving work just because it was easy. Easy was easy, true. But most of the time it was still boring and dry. In the tech department, besides communicating about work, almost no one chatted. Sophie Chen was somewhat more active, occasionally bringing cookies or snacks to share with team colleagues. Normal interactions were fine, just a bit strange at lunch. When eating in the cafeteria, she'd sit at the same table as me, circling around trying to extract information, wanting to know why the lead programmer had called me in. Had to admit, she was pretty sharp. I, of course, didn't let her probe easily. Every time she tried to ask, I'd skillfully steer the topic toward work. And the documents she submitted for work were truly quite poor. Her professional ability wasn't solid. So every time we discussed work, she'd go silent. Knowing what she was afraid of meant I had a way to keep her quiet. I pretended not to notice Sophie Chen's attempts to get close. Deliberately talking shop, building up a wooden, stone-like image. Only knowing work. This both made her stop probing me and extinguished any intentions of entanglement. Killing two birds with one stone. Still have to emphasize one thing. Sophie Chen's tricks, in my eyes, were just childish games. Naively clumsy to the point of pity. After that lunch, sure enough, Sophie Chen was quieter. Not acting so friendly, not continuing to approach me. The afternoon's work went very smoothly. When leaving the company after work, I ran into HR manager Zhao Qian in the main lobby. I quickly caught up, Sister Qian. Outside work hours, Zhao Qian was very approachable. No longer with that stern expression. Her whole being radiated a gentler aura. Something wrong? I smiled. Sister Qian, I'd like to ask you a favor. Life matters, find the HR manager. Work matters, find the lead programmer and system manager. I was very clear about these arrangements. If you have something, just ask directly. These conveniences are what headquarters arranged for me. Wasteful not to use them. Zhao Qian showed interest. New people at companies were usually timid, afraid of saying the wrong thing. My directness actually made people like me more easily. She smiled. What is it? If I can help, I will. I said, my home is quite far from here. I want to buy a car. Could you help me ask around? I'm planning to buy a used car. After all, sooner or later I'll return to Beijing. So I just need something for temporary transportation. Zhao Qian, all right then. What kind of car do you want? Just a used car someone wants to sell. A bit cheaper. No requirements about the model. I gave very simple conditions. Zhao Qian, okay. I'll help you ask around. She agreed very decisively, sneaking another glance at me. This young guy looked innocent and inexperienced. But unexpectedly, when needing to use connections, he was so decisive. Very knowledgeable about hidden benefits too. Like this used car matter. In the company, whoever wanted to sell a car, people around them would know. As colleagues seeing each other daily. Colleague pricing, guaranteed quality. Avoiding accident vehicles, buyers and sellers connect themselves. Moreover, I was the HR manager. Me going to ask people. Who would dare make things difficult? They'd even offer lower prices. These were all hidden benefits. Me directly asking about buying a car meant I understood all this clearly. Honestly, didn't seem like a new worker at all. You couldn't judge by appearances. Then I'm troubling you, sister. When you're free, I'll treat you to a meal. Zhao Qian laughed. This is just asking around. No need to be so formal. After saying that, she thought a moment. Then asked me, this morning I saw you and Sophie Chen chatting and laughing. You too. She deliberately drew out her tone. I quickly caught the conversation. Oh. Just happened to go upstairs together. When entering the company. Sister Qian, don't blame me for being nosy. But I still want to remind you once more. Sophie Chen seems lively and cute. But it's best not to get too close. I smiled. Yes. My smile was like a mask. Zhao Qian had no way of seeing through it. She didn't know if I understood what she said. But having reminded me this much, if I still deliberately dove in headfirst, I'd have to deal with the consequences myself. Zhao Qian also smiled. Good that you understand. Oh, and how was work today? We chatted casually. And left the company together. Just walking a short stretch together. We said goodbye. And went our separate ways. Zhao Qian headed to the parking lot. I crossed the street to find a public e-bike, different directions. Standing beside the shared e-bike. I didn't rush to scan the code. But called Sophia instead. At lunch I'd already called home. Saying I wouldn't be back for dinner tonight. And telling them not to wait for me. My mom didn't ask much. It had always been like this since I was young. Mom was always very relaxed with me. Me not coming home for dinner was simply because I wasn't at ease about Sophia. That silly girl yesterday, over a coconut water worth a few yuan. Hesitated endlessly. Her financial situation might be even worse than I thought. I wanted to help her within my means, without hurting her self-esteem. Like with meals, for instance. After 2 beeps, the other end picked up. I said, "What are you doing?" Sophia's voice sounded somewhat cheerful. "I'm doing laundry." "Sorry," I answered the phone slowly. "Something good happen? You sound really happy." On the other end, Sophia felt a bit shy, her face flushing. "It's because you called me. I'm very happy." This level of honesty made even me feel a bit embarrassed. I cleared my throat lightly, trying to change the subject. "Oh, have you eaten?" Sophia obediently answered, "Not yet." I said, "That's good, I haven't either. I'll come over in a bit. Let's eat together." She fell silent, her fingers unconsciously playing with the hem of her jeans. After a long time, still no answer. "Hello? Is the signal bad?" "Sophia, no, it's not that." Her voice stuttered, tense and confused. I sighed lightly. "Then in about 15 minutes I'll be there. Wait for me at home, okay?" Sophia hesitated, finally biting her lip, then releasing it and saying softly, "I don't have money. You go eat alone." "I'm sorry." She tried to sound casual, but her voice still trembled, like something breaking inside. Like a child whose friends invite them for snacks. clearly wanting to go, but can only lower their head and say, "You guys go." "I'm not going." Saying that sentence, the energy in her body suddenly deflated. Who would want the person they like to see them in such dire straits? Saying words like that was truly very difficult. Sophia Hayes. Hearing me call her full name, she immediately tensed up. Even though she couldn't see my face, she still unconsciously straightened up. I asked, "If I tell you something, will you listen?" Sophia froze, then quickly answered, "Yes. I'll listen to you." "Then listen. Come eat with me." My voice was low, calm but decisive. Not knowing why, that sentence made her heart skip a strong beat. She answered in a fluster, "Yes, I'll listen to you. See you soon." After hanging up, her heartbeat kept racing uncontrollably. It took a long time to gradually calm down. She knew clearly that had been an order, not an invitation. So this was what it felt like when the person you like gave you orders? Sophia stood by the bed, eyes vacant, not knowing what she was thinking. Her small face flushed bright red. Chapter 19. Dead Diary, Riverside's Sun. Even after autumn had arrived, late afternoon with slanting sun still burned fiercely enough to scorch people. Roads without shade. The glaring sun hurt the eyes. My hair was heated by the sun until it felt burning. Black hair absorbed heat. Would dyeing it all white make it less hot? Waiting at a red light, my thoughts wandered again. But right after thinking it, I realized I was being truly stupid. Of all things to think about, I thought of that nonsense. The heat must have glitched my brain's CPU. I ran my hand through my hair. So hot, I really needed to find a car soon. Riding like this every day was truly torture. If you ask why I wasn't wearing a helmet, it was because around the company there was only one shared bike. And someone had cut off the helmet strap. Don't know who was idle enough to go steal the helmet off a shared bike. Truly condemnable. Green light. I twisted the throttle fully. The bike still sluggishly crawled like a turtle. Wind blowing against my face. Felt a bit more comfortable. Passed a few streets, turning into the school district. Going a bit further, from afar I already saw a slender figure standing by a roadside billboard, nestled in the shade. The moment she saw me, she immediately looked up, her eyes bright with joy. She must have been watching this direction the whole time. I'd clearly told her to wait at home. Really was a silly girl. The corners of my mouth curved slightly. But I still stopped the bike, locked it, and ran over. As soon as I got close, seeing the beads of sweat on my forehead, Sophia quickly pulled a small packet of tissues from her pocket, took one out and held it out. "It's so hot out, you must be burning up." "Thanks." I took it. "It's nothing compared to the wind blowing against me." The girl before me made me feel much more comfortable. In her eyes, there was only me, only caring if I was hot. Not even noticing I'd come on a shared bike. Or why I'd returned on that bike. I suddenly recalled this morning at the company entrance, accidentally running into Sophie Chen. Her eyes were full of the car. Her intentions were obvious at a glance. I asked, "What do you want to eat?" Sophia reflexively lowered her eyes. "I'm fine with anything, I'll follow you." I thought a moment. "How about that special braised pork rice place near the school?" Sophia nodded lightly, not showing emotion. Just humming softly in acknowledgement. That was an old place too. Back in high school, when no one was home to cook, I'd often invite her to eat there. It was delicious. Since curling up in this rental room, her meals were mostly boiled noodles with salt water, white rice with soy sauce. Occasionally she'd buy a few eggs and vegetables. When the craving got too strong, she'd wait until late evening, running to the bakery near closing to salvage a few small discounted pastries, save every penny possible. All her money went to paying debts. For her, a serving of braised pork rice for over 10 yuan was already precious. She couldn't bear to eat it herself. The place was just past Riverside No. 2 Middle School. A few minutes walk away. The space was small. Inside were 4 or 5 square tables. Not many customers. The braised pork rice here had a mild flavor. In Riverside, where bold flavors dominated, business wasn't good. Sparse customers. This was one reason I chose this place. Last night while walking, I'd noticed. Whenever there were many people around, Sophia would immediately go silent, lowering her head, leaning slightly toward me for security. She was truly very afraid of strangers. Only when I was beside her did she try to appear normal. Not hard to guess. It was because she feared revealing her strangeness and being rejected by others. That's why I called her silly, a silly girl. Stepping into the restaurant. Throughout high school years, I hadn't come here many times. No impression of the owner. Not sure if they'd changed hands. 2 braised pork rice meals, add a fried egg to each. And 1 potato pancake too. Sophia looked at me in panic. Mine doesn't need extras. I smiled. Didn't you teach me to eat like this back then? I still remember how hard you promoted it, saying the potato pancake and fried egg here were crispy and really delicious. Sophia lowered her head again. Her small hands began fidgeting with the seam of her jeans. I said, "Go sit over there. Do you want anything to drink?" She immediately shook her head. "No need, I'm not thirsty." When the food was ready, I still got 2 free bowls of cauliflower and chicken gizzard soup. "Here, for you." Sophia received it with both hands, then took a small sip. "It's delicious." I saw all her efforts to hide her awkwardness. This was another reason I chose this place. She was more familiar with it here. And it was very cheap. It wouldn't make her feel too guilty or indebted. Sophia was actually a girl with quite high self-esteem. Being treated to a meal, her first reaction wasn't joy, but worry. She'd silently remember it in her heart, waiting for an opportunity to find a way to properly repay it, before even enjoying it, already afraid she couldn't repay enough. That was Sophia. No matter how much she closed herself off, that self-esteem never changed. I tried to think of everything for her as thoroughly as possible. If helping her ended up adding to her psychological burden, then it was better not to help at all. A moment later, the steaming braised pork rice was brought out. Sophia swallowed, glancing at the plate, then sneaking a peek at me. I hadn't picked up my chopsticks. She dared even less to eat first. I shook my head lightly and smiled, then picked up chopsticks to eat first. The company cafeteria food today was decent. Mom's cooking yesterday went without saying. Compared to those, this braised pork rice truly didn't measure up. Yet Sophia ate it so contentedly. I suddenly doubted whether she and I were eating the same thing. "Can I have a piece of your pork?" Sophia, who'd been eating seriously, looked up at me, quickly chewing and swallowing before saying, "Of course." I picked up a piece and ate it with her, then felt a bit disappointed. Sophia didn't know what she was thinking again. I picked up the fried egg and put it in her bowl. "I can't finish, you have it." I'd been misunderstood. Sophia was about to pick up a piece of potato pancake too. "This flavor is really..." I stopped her in time. "If you keep offering things back and forth like this, people will think we don't have enough money to eat." Though I was joking, those 3 words, "not enough money," still made Sophia lower her head. I realized I'd misspoken, trying to comfort her. "We're not some poor struggling couple. We're not so pitiful we have to feel bad about eating." Sophia lowered her head and hummed softly. The meal became somewhat quiet. After eating, they both left the restaurant. On the way walking her home, I saw she seemed sad, so decided to speak directly. "Vy, I know your financial situation isn't good right now. You feel guilty having me pay all the time." Sophia trembled slightly, eyes widening as she looked at me. "How do you know?" I looked straight into her eyes too. Those expressive eyes now became vividly clear. Those dark eyes full of disbelief. So readable it made me want to laugh. I almost burst out laughing, but still tried to keep a serious face. "But we're dating. As a couple, within our means. Helping each other through difficulties is normal. If I run into trouble later, I'd also want your help. So when you're struggling, can you let me help you a little?" Sophia hesitated, avoiding my gaze. "If you're in trouble, would you let me help?" She immediately turned to look at me. A bit rushed. "Of course I'd help you." I smiled. "Then also let me help you a bit when you're struggling. Okay?" Sophia's eyes wanted to avoid again. I continued, "At least, let me treat you to meals every day, okay?" Sophia was still hesitating. seeing her starting to waver. I seized the opportunity to add, I'm happy when you eat with me. If I'm ever in trouble later, remember to keep today's promise. Sophia, okay then. After saying that, they continued walking toward the rental. On the way, Sophia asked curiously, how did you know? She found it very confusing. Like I understood her better than she understood herself. I answered, you mean about your finances or your thoughts? Sophia, both. Looking at her adorable expression when genuinely confused. I couldn't hold back anymore and laughed out loud. After laughing a bit, I wiped the corners of my eyes. You have very expressive eyes. Sophia tilted her head looking at me, confused. Looking even sillier, I smiled, not explaining further, letting her think it through herself. Saying goodbye downstairs, waiting until I completely disappeared from sight. Only then did Sophia return to her rental. The first thing she did when getting home was sit down at the small table by the bed, take out a ballpoint pen, and open the small notebook. This was the notebook she used to record debts. Before, when paying debts, she'd cross off each item, crossing out cold numbers. But now she was writing in each debt entry. Promises for the future. Debt list. Today's braised pork rice was delicious. No matter what difficulties you face later, I will help you. This isn't just debt, it's love. I love you. Chapter 20. Something's off about him. When life becomes routine, each day passes like on an assembly line. My lifestyle gradually entered into a rhythm, operating according to procedure every day. Waking on time, eating breakfast prepared by mom, taking the shared e-bike to the company, working according to what the lead programmer assigned. After work, finding Sophia for dinner. Evenings at home chatting and watching TV with my parents. Like work on a production line. In a blink, it was already Thursday. Evening after dinner, watching TV, eating fruit. Huilan held a bunch of grapes. Sitting by the sofa, watching and eating. Glancing over, she saw her son hugging his phone with a silly smile. Lately it had been like this constantly. She tilted her head and asked, lately you haven't been home for dinner. Where have you been going? Normally mom rarely asked about her son's private life. But not coming home for dinner every evening. Mom still couldn't help wanting to ask. I smiled, lifting my eyes from the Instagram message Sophia had just sent. I turned to look at mom. I haven't been doing anything, just eating out. Huilan pondered slightly, asking, it can't be gatherings with colleagues every day, right? I thought a moment, then spoke directly. I'm dating, eating with my girlfriend. On the other side of the sofa, my dad, Chen Miaohao, was clutching the TV remote. He also turned to look at me. Huilan pushed up her glasses, sitting up straighter, being stared at and evaluated by both of them. I felt a bit unnatural. Testing the waters, mom. I'm already 24. Dating isn't illegal, is it? Good, good. Huilan muttered twice, putting down the grapes. So, what's your girlfriend like? I answered, she's a local from Riverside. Very gentle personality. Huilan seemed to want to say something. Had so many things to ask, but felt it wasn't convenient. Looking at me, she felt an indescribable feeling inside. The feeling that, just yesterday he was still a silly little kid, but now was already old enough to date. How did time pass so quickly? Huilan withdrew her gaze, picking up grapes again. She said slowly, you're grown up now. When dating, know to keep proper boundaries. You kids matters, mom won't interfere much. She ate a grape, suddenly remembering something. She turned back. Oh, and, if later you want to bring the girl home for dinner, you must tell mom ahead of time. I held back a smile. Yes, I know. Could also see the supreme leader was somewhat anxious. Nervous even. Just afraid I wouldn't say anything. And secretly bring someone home. Afraid of not preparing in time, not hosting properly. And having the girl laugh at us. Similarly, my dad Chen Miaohao was the same. If she was willing to come home for dinner, there was a good chance she'd be the future daughter-in-law. Couldn't lose face in front of the future wife. Everything had to be arranged perfectly. The two continued watching TV as usual, but seemed less focused, probably thinking about how to host properly. I quietly observed their reactions. Quite amusing actually. Then I picked up my phone again, messaging and chatting with Sophia, asking what she wanted to eat tomorrow. Suddenly another Instagram avatar appeared, along with a series of messages from the company's HR manager, Sister Zhao Qian. I opened to look. All information about used cars. Earlier I'd asked her to help find a used car. That was just 2 days ago. And the work efficiency was really high. Zhao Qian messaged, "Look through these cars, see if any work." I respectfully messaged back thanks. Then started looking through the materials. Had to say, quite thorough and detailed. Desired price. Model, where small scratches were. Usage condition, all clearly noted. Sellers were all company employees. Or employees from long-term partner companies. Could meet in person, also reassuring. I wasn't picky. Randomly chose one with decent value ratio. Messaging Sister Qian. "This one works, sister. Do you have the seller's contact info? I'll communicate directly." Zhao Qian worked quickly. Didn't say much. Directly forwarded the seller's Instagram to me. I messaged thanks. Then added that person's Instagram. After connecting, both sides started talking. That person was quite approachable. Straightforward and easygoing. Immediately set an appointment to see the car tomorrow afternoon. Perfect. Tomorrow was Friday, a day off. I looked up toward the other side of the sofa. "Dad, I'm planning to buy a car." Chen Miaohao turned around. "How much does Dad need to sponsor?" "No, that's not it. Just reporting to you." Chen Miaohao felt a bit helpless. Turning back to continue watching TV. Not bothering with me anymore. I hadn't deliberately teased him. Just instinctive reaction, though I'd been financially independent for a long time. Whenever buying big items like this, I still had the habit of reporting to my parents. Only then did I feel at ease. Truly a typical son leeching off parents. Couldn't deny it. A new day began again. The gears in the machine kept operating. In the morning at the company, I ran into HR manager Sister Zhao Qian. I thanked her directly. In the afternoon, near the end of work hours, I'd completed all the work the lead programmer assigned. Then went to the office to hand it over. Someone looking might think I was concentrating on listening. But actually my mind had long flown elsewhere. On the surface I was listening to the lead programmer, praising my work efficiency. But in my head I was already calculating where I should take Sophia this weekend. Thinking of her self-esteem, I decided to choose places that cost less. Near the end of work hours. Body in Sao's camp, heart toward Han. I wasn't the only one. Sophie Chen stared intently at the clock in the bottom right of her screen. 1 second felt like a century. While sitting bored not knowing what to do, a colleague sent her a file. Outwardly she smiled and accepted it. But inside felt annoyed. If there's work, can't it wait until next week? About to get off work, still pretending to be diligent. Who's that for? Luckily it was just some summary reports. Doing it sloppily would work. 3721, handled. She immediately sent that file to me. Then looked up with a smile. Team leader. I've sent the report over. After saying that, heard no response. Only then realizing I wasn't at my desk. Since learning I wasn't wealthy. And was also dry and boring, not understanding romance. A person just like a block of wood. Only knowing how to talk about work. Sophie Chen gradually lost interest. To the point she didn't even notice when I left my desk. Always talking about work at the drop of a hat. She was getting scared too. But either way, workplace courtesy still had to be maintained. In the desk drawer were some unshared snack packets. She stood up, placing those packets on my desk. About to turn and leave. She saw my work Instagram screen blinking. When too idle, people are easily attracted to small things. Sophie Chen glanced left and right. Then secretly clicked on that lit icon. Though no longer interested in me. Being curious about others' private matters excited her. That was her bad habit. Anyway, I wasn't here, and no one would see. Satisfying a bit of curiosity was fine. She didn't expect to find anything interesting. After all, this was work Instagram. With a wooden personality like mine. Just thinking about it, obviously all dry documents. But the feeling of secretly viewing what shouldn't be viewed was thrilling. She scrolled the mouse casually. then suddenly paused. The scroll speed gradually slowed. Something's off, she frowned slightly. A few keywords she couldn't ignore. Transfer from headquarters. Learning report at branch. Lead programmer's work guidance. Coordination with system planning. Confirmation of monthly work subsidy from headquarters. Looking closely at the monetary amount, Sophie Chen froze. All along she'd wondered why my work was directly arranged by the lead programmer. Now looking at these exchanges, it turned out I was sent down to the branch by headquarters for training. So young yet transferred to a branch for experience. Usually in cases like that, it was all about gaining experience before promotion. In other words, I was someone headquarters particularly valued. Moreover, my salary. Sophie Chen checked again. Suddenly a voice rang out behind her, making her jump in fright. She hurriedly closed the message window and turned around. It was a close colleague standing behind her, looking at her suspiciously. "What are you doing?" Sophie Chen smiled awkwardly. "Nothing. Just bringing some snacks over." After speaking, she glanced at the snack packets on my desk. The colleague hooked her arm. "Few more minutes until work ends. The boss isn't here. After using the restroom, let's slip out early. There's a new movie tonight. Want to watch it with me?" Sophie Chen answered offhandedly. "That gory horror one? Won't it be too scary?" "Oh come on, I heard it's really good." The two talked while walking out. But in Sophie Chen's heart, she was still calculating. Silently reassessing me, she suddenly felt she couldn't see through this person, but could confirm I absolutely wasn't poor. So why did he want to deceive me? Thinking back, it seemed he'd never actually said he was poor. It was just my one-sided speculation. I'd assumed his financial situation wasn't good. No car, commuting by shared e-bike, home in an old neighborhood, an old house. Thinking carefully, these things truly couldn't clearly prove he was poor. Rich people often had peculiar habits. I'd been too hasty. Looked like I needed to investigate his information again. This person named Ethan Carter. Chapter 21. Thick-skinned. Leaving the office. Right at quitting time, I returned to my desk to get my things. Saw 2 small cookie packets on the desk. Guessed they were from Sophie Chen. I casually stuffed them in my pocket to bring to Sophia. She quite liked these snacks. Preparing to shut down the computer, I saw a newly sent report file. This week's work shouldn't be left until next week, so I sat down to handle it immediately. I frowned slightly. Didn't know who compiled this report. A complete mess. Made me want to curse. Only option was to compile it myself. Then input the data. Still not home after work hours? A female voice rang out behind me, slow and gentle. I reflexively turned around. Seeing clearly who it was, I smiled in greeting. "Hello, Sister Qian." The person behind was Sister Zhao Qian. Didn't know when she'd arrived. Hearing my greeting, she nodded in response, then looked at the computer screen. I casually explained. "Did the lead programmer assign you too much work?" I said, "The lead programmer cares about me a lot. The tasks assigned are quite light." Zhao Qian asked, "Then what's this?" I answered, "This is a report sent by a team member. Sent a bit late, so I'm rushing to input it and finish. So I won't forget next week." Zhao Qian joked, "Working overtime like this? The company doesn't pay overtime, you know." I laughed along. Then changed topics. "Did Sister Qian come looking for me about something?" She didn't beat around the bush. Saying directly, "The car seller said yesterday they'd arranged to meet you this afternoon to see the car. I came to take you there. The HR manager personally driving me." I felt a bit embarrassed. Continuously waving my hand saying I could just take a cab. No need to trouble her. Zhao Qian said not to be so formal. It was on the way. That company is a long-term partner doing art design. I also have business there. You handle the report first. I'll wait for you. She gestured with her eyes toward the computer screen. I said nothing more, immediately turning back to process the report. Not difficult at all. I operated quite skillfully. If not for having to compile from scratch, it would take just a few minutes. The HR manager standing beside supervising. Felt like taking an exam, with the proctor standing right next to you. A bit constraining. But work efficiency was very high. Less than 10 minutes. I finished processing and quickly shut down. Outside work hours, Sister Zhao Qian dropped all her superior's sternness. No longer feeling pressuring, just like a gentle older sister. Mature and understanding, even sitting in the car together. The atmosphere wasn't awkward at all. She could chat about anything. Never killing the mood. Rush hour meant some traffic. Took about 10+ minutes to arrive. The destination was a small company. Sister Zhao Qian told me after viewing the car to message her. She'd drive me back. I continuously declined, saying I could just take a cab home. Having the HR manager pick up and drop off. Even taking me all the way home. Honestly, I wasn't used to such treatment. She didn't insist, just reminded me to be careful on the way home. If anything came up, just contact her. The two parted ways there. I started contacting the car seller. The company wasn't large. The seller arrived very quickly. A very enthusiastic and easygoing older guy. The two chatted while walking out to the parking lot to look. He said this car was bought at the beginning of this year. Carefully selected at the time. Quality was beyond question. He said back then his family faced some difficulties. Combined with economic downturn. The company here also wasn't stable. So he'd bought a car. Planning to drive for rideshare after work to earn money. But unexpectedly, the company received a long-term cooperation contract. Workload suddenly increased. Overtime became routine. Fortunately, salary also increased several times over. The family overcame the difficult period. Work got busy, the car sat unused, so he planned to sell it. I silently listened, understanding roughly the story behind it. This involved a few months ago. When the game this branch was operating suddenly got pushed into the eye of public opinion. The branch lacked manpower, outsourcing many design staff. This outsourcing company was the one chosen. That's how it was. After hearing the little story the guy just told, we'd also arrived in front of the car. Just as the guy said. The car was still very new. A white Nissan Sylphy Classic. I examined it carefully inside and out. The interior was also very clean. The guy even let me test drive it around. The car's handling felt great. Engine was strong too. I was quite satisfied, immediately discussing price on the spot. The guy was also very easygoing. Finally settled at 48,000. Had to say, buying this car at that price could be said to be absolutely perfect. The guy had also fully prepared all related documents. Both sides also discussed the next procedures. I wasn't in a hurry to use the car. Also didn't plan to get temporary plates. Just follow normal procedures. Vehicle inspection and registration. Wait for the license plates to be done. I'd just need to come pick up the car. The guy said no problem. For the next procedures, just message on Instagram. Set a date and go together. Everything was arranged smoothly. Probably about a week to get the car. The guy even enthusiastically invited me for a meal. I found a random excuse saying I was busy. So the two parted ways. Time had also passed quite a while. Not wanting to slowly ride a shared e-bike, I hailed a taxi on the street. Where to? The driver asked. I got in the car, closed the door. To the front gate of Riverside No. 2 Middle School. The car started rolling. I sat in the backseat scrolling my phone. Feeling somewhat strange. Unexpectedly, even at this hour. Sophia still hadn't messaged me. Today she was nearly an hour late. Logically, she should have messaged me long ago. Had something happened? What kind of girlfriend was this? I didn't call either. Decided I'd go see her in person and ask her properly. Habit was a truly frightening thing. At this moment, Sophia finally realized that. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at her phone. During this time, every evening I'd ask her out to eat. Just like going back to student days. I'd eaten with her through all the food stalls around the school. Special braised pork rice, skewers, spicy hot pot, fast food, those student-era flavors were all delicious. From the bottom of her heart, Sophia felt. Eating with me like this was truly very happy. Though sometimes when surrounded by crowds she'd feel scared. Having me beside her made it much better. Just that constantly spending my money. She felt very guilty. Sophia also always reminded herself. not to take my kindness for granted. She carefully remembered every good thing I did, even writing it down in a small notebook. But she still underestimated the power of habit. This afternoon, she'd tidied herself up as usual, preparing to go out. But after waiting nearly an hour, still hadn't received my message. She felt it strange, wanting to send a message to ask. But when her finger just touched the screen, looking at the chat window, she suddenly snapped awake. A question rang in her heart. What was I planning to message? Was I going to ask him why he hadn't come invite me to eat yet? Sophia stared at the phone screen, her mood extremely confused. She wanted to be diligent and self-improving, not become dependent. Why assume he'd definitely come? The phone screen had gone dark at some point. Her face reflected on the glass. How did I become this kind of person? Sophia frowned, looking at her image on screen full of worry. How embarrassing. The more she looked, the angrier she got. Smack. She raised her hand and slapped herself. Almost the instant her hand hit her face, the phone screen lit up. The system ringtone sounded. An Instagram voice call window appeared. The profile picture showed Ethan Carter. I immediately answered, timidly asking, "Why are you calling? What time is it and you still won't come down?" Sophia was a bit confused. She immediately rushed to the window to look outside. Saw me standing down on the street. Sophia Hayes, sorry, I'm coming down right now. She hung up, then hurriedly left the room, rushing as if preparing to meet the entire Milky Way, just forgetting the clear handprint on her cheek. Chapter 22. Someone who notices the world. Hanging up. I was standing to the side when I saw a three-wheeled cart slowly approaching. The back box of the cart had been converted into a transparent glass case. The frame was wrapped with a strip of small lights, illuminating the Tonghulu skewers displayed inside. All kinds of hawthorn berries, pears, strawberries, tangerines, and some unidentifiable fruits. With the lights shining on them, the glossy sugar coating sparkled, looking very beautiful. As the cart passed in front of me, I called it to stop. Buying 2 skewers. If I remembered correctly, she quite liked eating these. Just finished paying, when I heard movement on the stairs. Turning to look back, just like a little deer bursting out of the forest. No, a dazed deer, looking silly and adorable. Sophia ran over. Had to say, she came out really fast. Seeing her, my mood suddenly improved. I smiled, watching her come from far to near. Handed her a skewer. Here, Tonghulu. Sophia's chest rose and fell slightly. She took it, softly saying thanks. I was about to say something, when my smile suddenly froze. My eyes quickly detected something wrong. She was very pretty, precisely because she was pretty. Even a small flaw became prominent. For example, right now, on her fair face, there were several red marks clear as handprints. Very glaring, could even say abnormally prominent. I looked carefully again. Couldn't help frowning. Did someone hit you? Huh? Sophia froze at the question, looking at me confused. Before I could ask more, I'd already raised my hand toward her. Sophia didn't avoid it either. Just silently watched me reach toward her cheek. Honestly, I started feeling nervous. Heart beating faster. What was this? What was happening? Oh right, we're dating. In my head, I started thinking inappropriate thoughts. First my ears turned red. Then I curled my fingers slightly, using the bottom of the paper cup to lightly touch her already flushed cheek. Sophia stared at me. The instant I touched her cheek, she trembled slightly, clearly feeling that thin layer of paper. Her mind started going chaotic. And while she was wildly thinking what came next, I just lightly touched once and withdrew my hand, asking why there was a paper mark here. Gradually, Sophia's gaze still didn't leave my hand that had just withdrawn. A few seconds later, she finally processed what I just asked. Paper mark? She rubbed her face, still wondering why there'd be such a mark. Then suddenly remembered she just slapped herself. Too embarrassing. I was concerned about her. Yet she was thinking all that nonsense. Had no face left to look at me. I asked if anyone was bullying her. She was pressed by my questions, her small face immediately flushing bright red, just wanting to find a hole to crawl into. Her skin was already thin. Just a light scratch would leave a clear red mark. Let alone that slap just now was quite hard. The handprint was crystal clear. Seeing her turn away without speaking, I started getting worried. If someone's bullying you, you must tell me. If they hit you, this isn't a small matter anymore. I slapped myself. Before I could imagine worse scenarios. Sophia told the truth. After saying it, her 10 toes curled up in embarrassment. Inside her small white socks in her shoes. I looked at Sophia. She kept her head down, not daring to look up. She spoke up to explain further. I was just too angry at myself. So I slapped myself. She tried to explain as reasonably as possible, wanting to use that to salvage a bit of her image. After a few seconds of silence, I burst out laughing. Sophia lowered her head even more. You really hit yourself hard. I laughed, then said, lift your face up so I can see. Sophia hesitated a moment, but ultimately obediently complied. She lifted her face to look at me. The red handprint on her cheek showed completely. I bent down slightly to look closely, clicking my tongue twice. Teasing, you don't know how to control your strength at all. Here's an idea. Next time if you want to hit again, let me do it. At least I know how to hold back. I thought that line would make her laugh. But Sophia's reaction was a bit strange. She seemed to have been struck by what I said, her gaze starting to avoid mine, and even softly replied with a tiny, okay. I didn't pay much attention. Okay to what? Just talking nonsense. Angry at yourself so you slap yourself. You really are silly. Didn't it hurt hitting that hard? I spoke while lightly scolding her. She kept her head down silently. Actually, I wasn't being harsh. Just wanted her to remember. If I spoke too harshly, to the point she lost her appetite later, that wouldn't be worth it at all. I exhaled, my voice softening. All right then. Seeing you hit yourself like that, I feel bad too. Don't do that again. Sophia softly acknowledged. Don't know while keeping her head down. What that little head of hers was thinking. Don't know if she was thinking seriously or randomly. After I finished speaking, she looked up, saying softly, I know. You're doing this for my good. I'm a bit silly. If I do something wrong later, please just tell me directly, teach me. The logic was right, but hearing it felt strange somehow. I stiffened, my face a bit awkward, forcing a smile to get through it. I secretly observed Sophia, starting to question something in my head. Normal girls say, I don't need you to control me. That's the rebellious phase. So what phase is begging others to control them? Beyond my understanding. Couldn't figure it out. Forget it, not discussing this anymore. I changed topics to lighten the atmosphere. Eat the tonghulu quickly before the sugar coating melts. Sophia said yes, but still just held it, not eating. I saw her sneaking glances at my expression again. Had no choice but to smile lightly and take a bite first. Only then did she dare start eating. This scene was no different from servants in ancient noble households. Master hasn't eaten yet, so servants don't dare touch their chopsticks. Really a silly girl. I silently withdrew my gaze, chewing the candy, while enunciating clearly. Looking at her, I asked, why didn't you message me this afternoon? Sophia was still slowly savoring the sweet, sour, and cold flavor of the hawthorn berry. Hearing me ask, she quickly chewed and swallowed. Message about what? She asked me back. You were nearly an hour late, but didn't ask me even once. Sophia blinked, then suddenly understood I was talking about going to eat. Before she could speak, I narrowed my eyes. Don't you care about me anymore? Sophia's eyes widened several degrees. She hurriedly shook her head frantically. No, that's not it. I asked, then why didn't you message me? She hesitated, her gaze lowered, voice growing smaller. I don't have the right to ask you. If you're willing to invite me to eat, that's you being good to me. Whether you come or not after that, I shouldn't blame you. Her voice grew quieter and quieter. I paused. Really unexpected. Sophia's thinking went in that direction. This girl really was too silly. I sighed very softly, not continuing to argue, looking at the skewer in my hand. I suddenly asked, do you hate me? Sophia looked up at me, not understanding why I'd asked that. She answered honestly, I'd never hate you. I nodded. Good. This is for you. Saying that, I handed her the intact skewer in my hand. Seeing Sophia's astonished expression, I explained it was too sweet. I didn't like it much. Only took one bite. You won't mind, right? Sophia blinked repeatedly. My thinking really did jump around. She couldn't keep up for the moment. Her brain reacted a bit slowly. Wait for the connection to stabilize a bit. A few seconds later she finally reacted, hurriedly saying, I don't mind, I don't mind. I don't believe you. Then take a bite. Sophia obediently complied, biting one piece. The sweet, sour, and cold flavor. I nodded in satisfaction. What do you want to eat? Sophia's mouth was still chewing. Speaking unclearly. You choose, I'll follow you completely. Lately it was always this kind of dialogue. Ask her what she wanted to eat. She'd never dared say. But didn't need to say either. I understood her well enough. Middle school and high school. Sitting at the same desk for 6 years wasn't for nothing. I pretended to think. Pretending to probe with a question. Then let's go eat dry mixed noodles at old Zhang's behind the school. Lately they should have rock sugar pear tea made by the owner. Haven't had it in a while. In Sophia's eyes, a small joy lit up. She softly replied, I'll follow you completely. I smiled. If I remembered correctly, she liked that. We walked along the school fence toward the back gate. Sophia held the 2 Tonghulu skewers, slowly savoring them. By the time we reached the shop, she just finished eating. I ordered food. She obediently followed suit, not needing to say anything to the shop owner. I silently breathed a sigh of relief. Lately I'd been constantly observing her, wanting to see how bad her psychological condition actually was. But after so many days of observation, the results truly weren't optimistic. Though I'd mentally prepared for the worst, reality was worse than I'd imagined. Perhaps I should take her to see a psychologist. But in her current state, that wasn't feasible either. I kept thinking about that, glancing at Sophia. Today the shop was a bit crowded. She lowered her head, hunching her shoulders, trying to lean close to me for security. I silently looked after her, choosing a corner seat against the wall. If just 2 people, normally they wouldn't sit on the same side, mostly sitting across from each other. But I, with Sophia, was that rare case. We sat on the same side. She sat against the wall. I sat on the outside. As long as I sat down, the space between the wall and me formed a small corner. I was like a door. Sitting down could isolate the entire outside world. In others' eyes, perhaps I was just looking after the girl sitting inside. But in her eyes, I was the person who noticed her entire world, bringing her a space both safe and free. Only like this could she eat and chat with me normally, sharing and enjoying the brief freedom I brought. Chapter 23. Doing what lovers should do. After eating, like always, we slowly walked along the school fence back, just taking a stroll. Sophia seemed to be thinking about something, walking half a beat slower than me. Beside me, she felt I treated her too well. But that goodness didn't make her feel happy. On the contrary, each time receiving that kindness, she felt guilty for not being able to reciprocate, feeling insecure. Even now, she still felt like she was dreaming. She'd clearly decided to end her life. Yet I had suddenly burst into her life, bringing her new hope, and becoming her boyfriend, being good to her without any conditions. Sometimes Sophia even thought, if only I'd demand something from her, or be a bit mean to her, maybe she'd feel more comfortable. The easier something came, the more afraid of losing it. The more so, the more she cherished it. If possible, she wanted to pay a price for this affection. Sophia understood her own condition clearly. She had no ability to maintain this love. If this love left her, she wouldn't even have a chance to hold on. She feared it was all just a dream. When beside me, even her breathing had to be careful, afraid of waking from this dream. Even if it was just a dream, she hoped it would last a bit longer, staying beside me a bit longer. Like now, walking next to me. Thinking this, the corners of Sophia's mouth curved up slightly. She softly snuck glances beside her, wanting to look at me a few more times. Where'd he go? She looked around, turning her head back. I'd fallen 2 or 3 steps behind. Don't know when I'd stopped. She'd been too absorbed in thought to notice. She hurriedly returned to stand beside me. I was looking up at something. Sophia also looked up following my gaze. Treetops, white clouds, blue sky. Or the setting sun. Couldn't figure out what I was looking at. A few high school students passing by noticed us. Also curiously looking up following Sophia. Quietly asking what we were looking at. I said, I think I'm having a nosebleed. The few students standing around immediately pretended nothing happened, and quickly left. Sophia immediately got tissues to handle it. Not much blood, wiped clean in a few swipes. Didn't need to stuff tissue either. She tossed the bloody tissue in a street trash can. I acted like nothing had happened, while Sophia was anxious and worried. Do you feel unwell anywhere? She asked me worriedly. It's fine, just Riverside's climate is too dry. A bit of internal heat. Sophia was still worried, so asked. What were you thinking about just now? So absorbed in thought. Just walking with your head down straight ahead? She awkwardly avoided my gaze, answering, I wasn't thinking about anything. Then let me guess. I spoke while looking into the distance. Toward the intersection, thinking a few seconds. Then turning back to look at Sophia. Were you thinking about us? I asked very naturally. She wasn't on guard either. Unconsciously nodding. Softly humming acknowledgement. After saying it, she realized. Lowering her head, biting her lip, avoiding my gaze. I smiled lightly at her. You really are silly. Sophia softly said sorry. If it's about us, then you probably feel guilty. Feel this love came too easily. So it's not real. Hearing me slowly speak this, Sophia looked up at me with disbelief. Eyes wide open, mouth slightly agape. I carefully observed her expression. Looks like I guessed right. This silly girl really was thinking such things. After I finished speaking, Sophia's expression changed from shock to intense curiosity. How do you know? I answered, just guessing. Clearly Sophia didn't believe it. But she didn't ask more. While she was still silently thinking, I suddenly asked, do you think I'll break up with you? The question was too sudden. Sophia immediately panicked, looking up at me like she'd been shocked. Her whole being confused and flustered. Eyes full of fear. Her gaze dropped. Her small hands clutched her jacket hem. Did I do something wrong? Just tell me, I'll fix it. Her voice full of grievance. Almost crying. I immediately raised my hand to signal stop. Telling her not to panic. I was just asking casually. It wasn't that I wanted to break up. After explaining clearly, I asked again, do you think I'll break up with you? Sophia shook her head, turning away to secretly wipe her eyes. Then turning back, to look straight into my eyes. Her eyes slightly red. I don't know anymore, but when you ask like that, I feel very scared. Her voice sounded like she'd cry. I said, then let me ask differently. Do you want to break up with me? No, she blurted out immediately, without any hesitation, as if feeling the answer still wasn't enough. She added, as long as you don't break up with me. I'll never break up with you. I smiled lightly. What if I wanted to break up with you? Sophia's mind suddenly went blank. She stared at me, lips trembling slightly. Tears had welled up in her eyes. I said, I'm just hypothetically speaking. Sophia blinked, trying to hold back tears. Lowering her head, I'd beg you not to break up. Try to keep you. The words after didn't need saying. I understood just hearing the first sentence. She was a child, very lacking security in love. Because her own conditions weren't good. She defaulted to the other person being her savior. And viewed this love as charity.